like war. It makes me pound it very hard.
Well, the Young Turks, I'm your host, Cenk Uygur. Going to do the solo hour first, and then Yaz going to join me in the second hour. I've got 4 giant stories for you guys in this first hour. You don't want to miss any of it. So what are our allies up to? Why is the war at a stalemate and seems like it cannot be resolved? We'll get to that in a second. Then how Netanyahu called up Donald Trump for a closing argument on the war right before the war began and convinced him. How did he convince Donald Trump to go into Iran? That's an amazing story. The crisis in Lebanon continues, and now Israeli ministers saying, yes, obviously we're gonna take southern Lebanon. This is about land acquisition to grow the Israeli empire. And then I hope I have time to get to Gavin Newsom and his flip-flop on AIPAC in Israel. That one is a doozy. So a lot to get to on the program. So let's get started. Okay. So a lot of our allies appear to be confused, including the Saudis. They say, well, look, we want you to end the war. In fact, they're part of the negotiations to end the war, but at the same time, we want you to escalate the war. Now, the Israelis are not confused. They want only escalation. But at the end of this story, I'm gonna tell you what the real goal of the Israelis is, because it wasn't clear until Joe Kent started to talk about it. The New York Times has now confirmed it. And this story is also going to tell you why getting out of this war is going to be very, very difficult. The two sides are so far apart from each other. So an enormously important story. By the way, on Thursday's Young Turks program at 7 o'clock Eastern, we're gonna interview Joe Kent and talk to him about all this as well. But first, let's start with the theoretical peace negotiations. So our allies, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Pakistan had got together and in Pakistan to launch the negotiations, and they invited the Americans. The Americans were like, yes, great, wonderful, we'd love to do it. We got to get out of this war. One slight problem, they forgot to invite the Iranians. They're the other side of this war, so those negotiations are unlikely to go anywhere without them. So, of course, partly kidding, they didn't forget. They tried, and the Iranians largely said no. Now, there is talk of a backdoor channel to the Iranians. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the role of the Saudis, and then get to, unfortunately, how getting out is near impossible. All right, so what do these allies want? Well, the Wall Street Journal explains, during the back channel discussions last week, Arab leaders were especially focused on opening the Strait of Hormuz. They called for the strait to be overseen by a neutral committee that would allow safe access by all ships. Now, that makes a lot of sense. Of course, they all want that. Their oil is blocked and can't get through the Strait of Hormuz. Their oil fields and gas fields are being bombed in the Gulf. So they have a very high incentive to get this thing wrapped up, but in a way that works for them, because there's a giant bogey for them that came after the war started. We're gonna get to that in a second. Wall Street Journal continues, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard replied that Iran should collect fees from transiting ships, just as Egypt does now with the Suez Canal. SpaghettiOs. So therein lies the rub, guys. Before we started the war, everybody could go through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, Iran blocked the Strait of Hormuz, and no one can go through it unless they have permission from Iran, and some do. We have allowed some of the Chinese ships, etc., to get through. Why? Because we're worried about the price of oil. And so now Iran realizes after the war, wait a minute, apparently we totally run the Strait of Hormuz. Why don't we charge a toll like the Egyptians do at the Suez Canal? Now, the Saudis, the folks from the UAE and many other countries are like, whoa. Now we have to pay more to get our oil out, and we have to give it to Iran, who is oftentimes our enemy? Yeah, maybe you shouldn't have started the war. Maybe you should have listened to some of us who said this is a disastrous idea. Now, to be fair to the Gulf countries, they didn't really want this war in the first place, But now that it has started, the Saudis have changed their minds about how to end it. Get to that in a second. Now, meanwhile, Qatar, Oman, France, UK, all saying, please, let's negotiate, okay? We gotta get out of here. This is terrible for the whole world, asterisks, except Israel, who loves it. So Wall Street Journal reported that Trump, after he was informed of these negotiations, and this is the part where it's a little dicey, and you could tell that the administration is happy about these leaks. I'll give you a quote from Caroline Levitt in a minute to prove that. But they say Trump's shift followed a series of closed-door discussions through Middle Eastern intermediaries that US officials gave them hope. An agreement to settle the conflict was possible. It also reflected a growing desire by Trump and some of his advisors to bring the war to a close. So now that's important in a couple of ways. Number one, our press is saying, and rightfully so, this is in a rare case, it might have been about the price of oil and the stock market. Only some in the press are saying that, but whoever it is, credit where credit is due, that's closer to correct, right? This is kind of a halfway leak from the administration to cover their own ass and to go, well, I mean, it wasn't just about manipulating the markets, and it's not because we're desperate. It's that Oman asked us to come to these negotiations, and we thought, Oman, how could we not go? And that's why Donald Trump gave this 5-day buffer. All right, yeah, sure. But also it's important to note that the Americans do want this war to be over as quickly as possible. Not just the American people, that's already baked in, but now the administration realizing, oops, we screwed up here. So now let's go to the New York Times. They explain the Saudi motivations. They say Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has been pushing President Trump to continue its war against Iran, arguing that the US-Israeli military campaign presents a, quote, historic opportunity to remake the Middle East, sounding like the Israelis there. So wait a minute, how could the Saudis want to get to a peace deal but want to remake the Middle East and continue to go with Iran? Because at this point, the Saudis have realized, not the other Gulf countries that I mentioned, just the Saudis, yeah, it's too late. Now, if America leaves, we're at the mercy of Iran because they've been bombing us to no end, and we got barely any defenses. We're huffing and puffing about, we got this big military, we could do a lot of damage, but we can't stop a damn thing, and the Strait of Hormuz is closed, and I gotta pay taxes on it now? Now that we started, we gotta go all the way in. So how do they wanna remake the Middle East? Back to New York Times. Trump has at times seemed open to winding down the war, but Prince Mohammed has argued that would be a mistake. People briefed on the conversation said and has pressed for attacks against Iran's energy infrastructure to weaken the government in Iran. But wait, if you thought that was bad, and it is, get a load of the next sentence. Prince Mohammed has advocated ground operations in his conversations with Trump. Okay, so look, let's pause here. First of all, the Saudis would like us to expend American soldiers for their benefit and more American dollars for their benefit. Well, I have the same answer to them as I do to the Israelis. Go pound sand. Not my business, man. You have this war with Iran. Well, you say you didn't want it, you chose the wrong alliances. You chose Israel, and that's who the Saudis have been working with this whole time. UAE is totally in bed with Israel. It turns out Israel screwed you. Who could have seen that coming? Me and every analyst, but you schmucks didn't see that coming. So now you want us to fix your problem with American ground troops? Hell no. Now, of course, our answer is going to be yes, because our leaders are corrupt and don't work for us at all. They work for the highest bidder. The Saudis will dangle some money in front of Trump, and the Israelis are dangling everything else in front of Trump. And Trump is like, help the Saudis and the Israelis. I love it. Like, where's America first? Okay, here's a simple idea, not talking to the press at all, because discussing it is anti-Semitic. Why don't we use Israeli troops for the ground invasion? Why don't we use, okay, is this Islamophobic? Why don't we use Saudi troops for the ground invasion? If the Saudis and the Israelis want ground troops so bad, why don't you use your own army? I mean, your armies that you constantly brag about. The Saudis are like, they better not let us get into the war. Okay, who's stopping you, big guy, okay? And the Israelis, IDF. Yeah, the IDF is fantastic at murdering women and children who are totally defenseless. But when it comes to Iran, they're like, no, that's a meat grinder. Send in the Americans. The schmuck Americans, we bought all their leaders, and we'll drive them into the meat grinder. And that is what's happening. Later in the show, you'll see the Israelis are talking about taking more land. including Lebanon and Syria, big parts of Lebanon and Syria, because they figure, well, America's gonna pay for it. Why not expand our empire? So now, let's go a little further into the disaster and why none of this is gonna work anyway, because we're not gonna be able to get out. Okay, so the Saudis are thinking, well, I don't wanna pay that tax, so you go in further. Now the Gulf states, Wall Street Journal says the Gulf states are unified in their anger with Iran, Arab officials said, but they're also angry at the realization they aren't able to exert much influence on the Trump administration's decisions despite being security partners and investing heavily in the relationship, they said. Oh, you schmucks thought that Trump was gonna prioritize you over the Israelis? Man, look, you have to remember, these are like 8th generation, 18th generation, like inter-family married royals. Okay, like they don't know anything in the world. They're like, oh golly gee, we gave a lot of money to Donald Trump. I bet the entire infrastructure of the United States that supports Israel will turn around immediately. God, you guys know nothing. Wall Street Journal continues, Arab states thought they had successfully lobbied the US to prevent such attacks after an earlier Israeli strike on fuel depots in Tehran. That's earlier in this particular war, not the June war. Instead, the US allowed the strike on South Pars to go ahead after receiving advance notice from Israel, American and Israeli officials said. So they're like, well, Trump promised us, and we've given him, all this deals, and Kushner billions of dollars, his son-in-law, that he wouldn't bomb and he would keep the Israelis from bombing the oil fields, because if they do, or the gas fields, then the Iranians are gonna strike back and bomb our oil fields and gas fields. So a good thing we got Trump under control. And Trump's like, oh, the Israelis asked for something? Right away, sir. I'm so sorry, Benjamin Netanyahu, for not doing it earlier. So he's like, yes, let's bomb their fields. And the Saudis are like, what? You said you weren't gonna bomb the fields. Hey, schmucks in the Gulf, America works for Israel. How did you miss that? How bad is your intelligence? They bought 94% of our Congress. They've given Trump $337 million. Let alone the fact that our entire media is like, poor Israel, the victims of victims, doing self-defense. You didn't notice any of that? That our media and our politicians are totally in the tank for Israel? They're so blind and ignorant. All right, so Trump seems prepared, they say, to pursue a deal. Telling reporters Monday that some Iranian leaders could usher in a better era of US-Iran relations. So this goes into the delusion of Donald Trump. He thinks, we got this, man. They're gonna surrender any second. Here's what Trump said. We're dealing with some people that I find to be very reasonable, very solid. Maybe one of them will be exactly what we're looking for. Look at Venezuela, how well that's working out. See, the Israelis, and this is a story a little bit later in the program, convinced Trump that this was going to be easy. Oh, it's just going to be like Venezuela. You're going to go in and murder their top leaders, and then you're going to find someone very reasonable. His name is Reza Pahlavi Jr., the Shah, who works for Israel, right? So that plan didn't work. So then they're like, I don't know, find someone else. But wait, Israel has a plan B that is way worse, apparently. So, and Trump, the moron, believed it. And so he's constantly looking for, who's going to sell out? Who's gonna sell out the regime and the entire Iranian people and be our puppet? Who is it? And our intelligence guys keep going back to him and go, there is no such thing. The Israelis made it up. Again, partly why Joe Kent came out. He's like, the Israelis are giving us intelligence that isn't close to true, okay? But schmuck Trump doesn't know that, so he's still waiting. So now wait, is all this a real leak? Like, is it like, oh my God, Wall Street Journal got it? Or did the Trump administration secretly want to leak this to say, oh, we're not doing market manipulation and the war's almost over and everyone's on our side. And look at the Saudis want to go in deeper too. So here's a quote from Caroline Levitt. There are sensitive diplomatic discussions and the US will not negotiate through the press. This is a fluid situation and speculation about the meetings should not be deemed as final until they are formally announced by the White House. Now you might say, Cenk, why'd you even read that to me? That's like a standard PR thing. No, that is a non-denial. That means, oh, you want to run that story about how all of our allies want us to go deeper into the war and that we really had this wonderful peace deal, but it's all Iran's fault for not stepping up? Exactly what we want you to print? Sure, print it. I won't deny it, and maybe it'll be confirmed later. Okay, so when you read things like that, guys, you begin to get a sense of who's doing the leak. who's bringing you this story, because you have to know that motivation, because the press doesn't let you know. They help scam you guys. So back to the Wall Street Journal, because now we're getting to the disaster. So now we're wondering, how's this war gonna end, right? Well, as a condition of any deal to end the war, they explain, Iran is demanding that the US and Israel pledge not to launch future attacks. Tehran is pushing for compensation for damages sustained during the war. So not only is Iran demanding a solid promise from America to never invade again, well, that promise from the Israelis would be hilarious. It wouldn't be worth the paper it's printed on. They'll attack the very next day. So, but for the Americans, we're unlikely to make that promise, but we can make a general promise. That's not the harder part. The harder part is we're gonna give Iran reparations for a war we started. Now there's logic in that, but do you think that the Americans are gonna do that? Yeah, like inconceivable. So what Iran is asking for, like, why don't you pay us for this dumbass war you started as reparations for your mistake, and we'll take an apology with it, is unlikely to come to fruition. But wait, there's only one group that's more unrealistic, and that's us. The US still wants what it sought from Iran before the war started: the dismantlement of Tehran's nuclear work, a suspension of its ballistic missile program, and a stop to its support for proxy militias. So this is the same load of totally undoable horse crap that Israel talked Trump into in the first place. Not only do we want to end all of their nuclear enrichment, let alone nuclear weapon program, let alone the fact that it doesn't exist and it's been destroyed, but they have to give up every single missile they have. And they have to give up their own foreign policy and let America and Israel run their foreign policy. Which country would agree to that, let alone a country that at this point, because of the massive damage to the markets the closing of the Strait of Hormuz is doing, they're kind of winning. Like yes, their military is destroyed, but apparently it's not destroyed enough for us to open up the Strait of Hormuz. And we're the ones looking for a peace deal, and Iran won't even show up to the peace negotiations. You think those guys with that amount of leverage are gonna go, oh yes, of course, sir, we will surrender completely to you and grovel at your feet, Benjamin Netanyahu, and give you all of our missiles and all of our guns and all of our children and whatever else you like? No, that means we are nowhere near the end of this war. The two sides, American side is as unreasonable as it has ever been. The Iranian side has become more unreasonable. Well, or they've gained more leverage. So no, if you hear stories about the wars almost coming to an end, they are utter garbage, not remotely true. No one's moved off their totally intractable positions. Now, while the Saudis want to open up the Strait of Hormuz as the rest of the world does, Israel has a different objective for this war, and it is devastating. Joe Kent actually talked about this in his interview with Tucker Carlson. He's gonna be again on the program on Thursday. Make sure you check that out right here on YouTube. But now the New York Times confirms what Joe Kent said. They say analysts say Israeli officials would probably view a failed Iranian state that is too caught up in internal turmoil to menace Israel as a win, while Saudi Arabia views a failed state in Iran as a grave and direct security threat. So on that one, the Saudis are right. If you have a failed state in Iran, it's gonna affect the whole region. You don't know who's gonna win. Maybe the most radical guy wins. And you don't know what they're gonna do with their military. They weren't offensive before, maybe they'll turn offensive now, right? So meanwhile, Israel goes, oh, we would have loved to have a puppet in there that reports directly to Tel Aviv or Jerusalem. But barring that, let's go with chaos, where we destroy everything and everyone is distracted. While we take southern Lebanon, western Syria, we further decimate Iran and they have no defenses. They're in a bloody civil war where they're killing each other instead of defending the Palestinians. Perfect, a recipe for death, destruction, and chaos. And by the way, guys, that's the New York Times reporting Israel's objectives. That's not me saying, hey, I think. In fact, when I first heard Joe Kent say it, I thought, that seems uncharacteristically dumb of the Israelis, because in the long run, that's not gonna help them either. You don't want chaos in the Middle East, that's crazy. But then The Israelis are so radical now, and they're so wild-eyed, they can't see straight either. They're like, yes, we want anarchy in the Middle East. Muslims kill each other, yes, right? Yeah, but you crazed radicals, you frickin' terrorists, that kind of chaos winds up blowing up on everyone, including your beloved Israel. But they can't see straight, so they're rooting for chaos. And these are our allies? These are the guys we're doing the war for? And these are the guys who pretended, oh my God, we're so concerned about the Iranian people. We're worried the mullahs are gonna kill them. We have to go in and save the Iranian protesters. And after the war starts, the New York Times confesses Israel's plan is to have as many Iranians kill one another in a disastrous and deadly and catastrophic civil war. That's Israel in a nutshell for you guys. And that's the guys that we are following loyally, blindly, and cannot disagree with. So we're in for a world of hurt. This is nowhere near over. All right, guys, we got to take a break here. When we come back, how Israel and Netanyahu tricked Trump into the war in the first place. Again, this isn't me saying it. This is top-level White House officials reported in Reuters and other places. So we'll be right back.
I love cows.
All right, let's go to YouTube members. Henry Garris says, Cenk, I love your rant, serious. Thank you, brother. Casey Aegis says, Cenk's 2 cents for an hour, I'm down. You know, that used to be the whole show. Anyway, Solo Rick says, a military plane crashed in Colombia, death toll rising. I'm reading these blind, I'll look into that later. But don't worry, we're the policeman of the world, we're the military of the world, everything's gonna work out great. Okay, Salva Samran Scripta says, does Trump really think he'll come out of this as a winner? He's been totally duped. My question is, what has Netanyahu got on him? What exactly? I'm in Australia, Lebanese, and here from the ground in Lebanon. So we'll get to that in a minute because they might just be convincing him. They might not have blackmail. That's what the next story shows. Like, it's not clear, but it could be just that he's stupid. And they easily tricked them, but we'll see, we'll see. So absurdly overpowered halal patriot said someone from corporate media should question Saudi and UAE leaders about their thoughts on genocide happening continuously funded and aided by their beloved friendship with USA. I mean, but Saudis also did a genocide arguably in Yemen. So it's not, their hands have been dirty for a long time. Now, Benu Faki writes in, as someone of Southern Lebanese heritage, I'm absolutely livid that world governments are just standing by doing nothing like they did with Gaza, watching another genocide unfold. That's why I fight Israel so hard, because no one else. All right, back on TYT. Let's do more stories, you crazy, let's have some fun. Oh, by the way, before we do that real quick, no, sorry, I forgot. Two things, remember the commercial breaks now are down to 2 minutes instead of 4 minutes. We're giving you more show. But if you want to see me reading your super chats and your member comments during the breaks, join through tyt.com/join, tyt.com/join. And if you're already a YouTube member, you already paid for it, just connect your accounts, tyt.com/connect. And then the other thing I want to tell you guys is, if you're doing any kind of business where you got to shop, do the same thing we did. Make sure you're using Shopify, because it's both the best one, and we tried a whole bunch of others, and it's best on price. So it's a win-win. If you're setting up a shop at all for your business online, you gotta do this. And right, if you act now, you sign up for your $1 per month trial today. That's an awesome deal, $1 per month trial. So shopify.com/TYT, shopify.com/TYT. All right, now let's do the next story. Okay, getting worked up. All right, So now we find out that Benjamin Netanyahu had a call with Donald Trump right before we started this war in Iran. And it turns out Netanyahu convinced him to go into this war. Now I'm gonna show you the different strategies he had, the different mind tricks he played on Trump, and which one worked. But there's also something you gotta keep in mind in this story, which is that a lot of people think, hey, Israel controls our politicians because they give so much money through the Israeli lobby. And that is definitely true. There's no question about it. That is an empirical fact. Anyone who tells you that that's not true is actively lying to you, okay? Which is almost all of mainstream media. Okay, so now on the other hand, a lot of people have the theory that Israel might also be blackmailing Donald Trump. Again, if mainstream media is like, how dare you? Oh, you can't say that about our beloved Israel. Okay, Mr. Objective, we can say whatever we like, and the guy is acting super weird. This story, though, could show you that maybe it isn't blackmail. Maybe that Donald Trump is so mentally weak, they were easily able to trick him into the war. So let's find out together. So this is from Reuters. They explained that this call mounted to the Israeli leader's closing argument to his US counterpart, Trump. So what did they go with? They say, there might never have been a better chance to kill Khamenei and to avenge previous Iranian efforts to assassinate Trump, anonymous sources said. Those included a murder-for-hire plot allegedly orchestrated by Iran in 2024 when Trump was a candidate. Now, wait, what? So the Israelis told Trump, oh, remember how the Iranians were trying to kill you? You should kill them first. Now that's preposterously dumb for reasons I'm about to explain to you, but that's not gonna work, is it? Well, we're gonna find out at the end which of these arguments work. Why did I say that's preposterous? Well, I looked into it because every once in a while you hear Mark Levin or some other Israeli first guy, the Iranians are trying to murder Trump, and they never present any proof or anything. So I was like, okay, let's find out what this nonsense is. So they have accused two different guys. One's an Afghan, the other one's a Pakistani guy, of trying to organize a hit on Donald Trump. So let's find out if that's true. The Justice Department has accused a Pakistani man of trying to recruit people in the United States in the plan meant as retaliation for Washington's killing of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps top commander Qasem Soleimani. We're still on that? But we killed Ayatollahs and stuff. But anyway, maybe they claim slightly older plot, okay. Potential targets of the 2024 scheme included now President Donald Trump, then President Joe Biden, and former presidential candidate and ex-US UN ambassador Nikki Haley. Wait, what? I thought this was like the Iranians are out to get Donald Trump. And then you look into it and it's some bozo rando who's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna kill Trump. Yeah, that's it. And then I'm gonna kill Nikki Haley. Yeah, and then Biden. And then maybe Dukakis. So it was not a plot against Trump. It was a plot, a non-plot. By the way, the only people that the Pakistani guy talked to was FBI agents. Okay, they're like, oh, you want to kill more Americans? Tell us more, tell us more. And the guy's like, then I like to kill Bugs Bunny. They're like, we got him, right? So then in August, how about let's stick with the Pakistani guy. In August, Brooklyn federal prosecutors charged the Pakistani man suspected of plotting on behalf of Iran to kill high-ranking US politicians or officials, including perhaps Trump. Wait, now we're at perhaps Trump. Definitely Nikki Haley and Joe Biden, but perhaps Trump. This is the dastardly plan of the Iranians. This is total horse crap, okay? But wait, we're not done. How about the Afghan guy? In September and October of this year, according to prosecutors, Shakari, while located in Tehran, he's Afghan but went back to Tehran apparently, participated in a voluntary phone interviews with the FBI. Wait, what? So some guy says he's calling from Iran and saying, well, I was gonna kill Trump, but now I'm in Iran. And I decided to call the FBI anyway. Oh, the number says Tel Aviv? Okay, I'm kidding about that one. But really, a guy who escaped to Iran, called later and said, oh, by the way, FBI, I'd like to fill you in on my plans. Okay, you'd have to be a mainstream media reporter to believe that. But to be fair, no, seriously, most of them don't believe it. That's why you almost never hear about this story, because everybody knows it's total garbage, right? But apparently the one guy who didn't know that was Donald Trump, because Netanyahu was like, they were gonna kill you. Are you gonna let them get away with it? Did you hear about the Pakistani in Malaysia? who made a call to the CIA? All right, whatever. Okay, so we'll see in a second if that worked. So now they went on to make other cases. Trump could make history, they said, by helping eliminate an Iranian leadership long reviled by the West and by many Iranians. Netanyahu argued Iranians might even take to the streets, he said, overthrowing a theocratic system that had governed the country since 1979 and been a leading source of global terrorism and instability ever since. So this is his argument for, look, you've always wanted to get rid of Iran, did you? I think you always wanted to get rid of Iran. That's been Netanyahu's goal all along. And he says, but don't worry, people are gonna take to the streets. Well, they did take to the streets. We showed you videos of that earlier. They all rallied around the flag. Again, just like Joe Kent said that they would back when he was in the government. He's talking about it now. He'll be on the show Thursday at 7 o'clock. You know, Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 p.m. Young Turks right here, YouTube and wherever else you watch. So, our intelligence was like, they're not gonna take to the streets unless it's in opposition to Israel and America. They're not gonna take to the streets after we bomb their children and say, yay, Israel, right? But again, Netanyahu knows who his target is. Donald Trump's IQ's in the single digits. So he's like, oh, they're gonna like Donald Trump? The Iranians are gonna like Donald Trump? They're gonna be in the, I wonder if he told him, they're gonna chant Trump, Trump, Trump. Trump probably would have believed it. Anyways, as you see now, not exactly how it unfolded. And now, as I reported in the last story, the Israelis are saying, actually, we kind of prefer civil war in Iran where they all kill each other. From the guys who told you, we're doing this for the Iranian protesters. Okay, but every mainstream media reporter is like, oh, Israel, beloved Israel. Yes, they're doing for the Iranians, 30,000 dead. Israel cares so much about Muslim people. Okay, anyways, so next argument. Not long after, during a February visit by Netanyahu to Washington, the Israeli leader briefed Trump on Iran's growing ballistic missile program, pointing out specific sites of concern. He also laid out the dangers of the ballistic missile program, including the risk that Iran might eventually gain the ability to strike the American homeland, said 3 people familiar with the private conversations. So if I'm the president, I go, really? Iran has a ballistic missile that's gonna reach America? Show me. How in the world is it gonna reach America? But Trump doesn't know anything, has never done any homework, has never listened to his presidential daily briefings. Remember those stories from his first term where they had to draw on pictures and say Trump, Trump, Trump to get him to read 1 page. So he doesn't know that Iran's ballistic missiles can't possibly reach the United States. So Netanyahu takes that as an opportunity. Oh yeah, they could hit Albuquerque, Donald. Oh my God, what if they hit Mar-a-Lago? Oh, okay, I'll go to war for you, Israel. Okay, that's who they're working with. So here's another one. The possibility of regime change, they said, was one of Netanyahu's arguments in the call shortly before Trump gave the final orders to attack Iran, so the people briefed on it. That view was not held by the Central Intelligence Agency, which had assessed in the weeks prior to that Khamenei would likely be replaced by an internal hardliner if he was killed, as Reuters previously reported. Trump repeatedly called for an uprising after Khamenei was killed. So he believed the Israelis over our own CIA, and that was shocking that our CIA is independent enough to give him that intelligence, but they did in this one case. And so, but since he believed the Israelis after the war started, that's why you see Trump constantly going out there and going, who's gonna be the next leader? Who's gonna replace Khamenei and work with me and let me run the Strait of Hormuz? Who is it? Because he really thinks that's gonna happen because the Israelis told him. Oh God, so which of these worked the best though? We're getting to that in a second. Trump has also been briefed. There's a lot of arguments they threw at Trump to get him to attack. Trump has also been briefed that there was a chance, even if small, that the killing of Iran's top leaders could usher in a new government in Tehran that was more willing to negotiate with Washington, said 2 other people familiar with Rubio's briefing. So they're telling him, they're gonna work with you. The minute you attack them, they're gonna immediately surrender and say, what can we do for you, like they did in Venezuela. That was very persuasive to him. Now, Israel says, all of this is hogwash. Yeah, we made all those arguments, but Donald Trump, he's a mental genius, a very stable genius. So we couldn't possibly influence him anyway. In fact, Netanyahu just said the other day in a news conference on Thursday, dismissed as, quote, fake news, claims that Israel somehow dragged the US into a conflict with Iran. Does anyone really think that someone can tell President Trump what to do? Come on. And this is an argument you see Israel First making here in America all the time. Can I see someone telling Donald Trump what to do? Yeah, easily. Like when Qatar gives him a $400 million plane, all of a sudden he's a lot friendlier to Qatar. when Adelson gave him $337 million for his 3 campaigns, he literally said on the air, well, Sheldon gave me a lot of money and he wanted Israel to take Golan Heights and move the embassy. So I did it. I gave him Golan Heights and I moved their embassy for Sheldon. Can someone get Donald Trump to do something by offering him money or persuade him in some other way? Of course they can. It's the easiest thing in the world. So, okay, now we get to, okay, but what was decisive? The reporting shows that the Israeli leader was an effective advocate, and his framing of the decision, including the opportunity to kill an Iranian leader who allegedly had overseen efforts to kill Trump, was persuasive to the president. So he believed that nonsense story about, oh yeah, there's a dude somewhere in the world calling and pretending he was gonna kill you. And he's like, oh my God, are they gonna kill me? Are they gonna kill me? Oh, I'm gonna get them first. Wait, you think I'm exaggerating? Hold on, I got quotes for you. So is it true? Well, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth in early March suggested that revenge was at least one motive for the operation, telling reporters, quote, Iran tried to kill President Trump and President Trump got the last laugh. Did he? Because I feel like Netanyahu got the last laugh. We can miss the schmuck that the Iranians are out to get you. Now, well, okay, you're gonna say, well, that's Hegseth. That's Hegseth. I mean, do you have it from the horse's mouth? Did Trump say it? Last quote for you from Donald J. Trump, US president, about the Ayatollah. I got him before he got me. He is that stupid. So the Israelis just played him like a fiddle and for a fool. And they're like, oh yeah, Donald, you're gonna be greeted as a liberator. The Iranian people are gonna be out in the streets chanting your name. It's gonna be easy. And they're gonna have somebody come up and go, Donald, please run our country. And you're gonna be considered a hero. And we covered this in a previous story. And if you don't participate in the war, you're going to be, quote, a spectator to history. You're gonna be a loser, weakling, looking on while we in Israel get all the glory. Oh, you're gonna get all the glory by doing all the fighting for us? Oh, golly gee, Donald, you did it again. And you're gonna strike back against the Ayatollah before he gets you? Oh, Donald, you're so smart and brave. That's our leader, a total sucker for falling for nonsense arguments like that. And now American guys are dying, 13 dead already, 5 planes shot down, endless damage, the price of oil sky high. And now Israel's saying, yeah, so what? Maybe chaos in Iran works better for Israel. Oh, it didn't work well for you guys? You're all paying higher gas prices in America and the rest of the world? Well, too late. Now you're stuck in a quagmire. There's nothing you can do about it. And by the way, Netanyahu is ordering in American ground troops. We'll be right back.
I put on the blinders, I say I just do it.
Let's go to members at TYT.com. Nerd Ferguson says their missiles would reach the US if we move parts of the US, soldiers and ships, really close to their homeland. Yep, and that's exactly what we did. And so when they kill more Americans, Netanyahu is gonna go back and whisper in Trump's ear, oh, they killed Americans. Are you weak, Donald? Be strong, Donald. Send in more ground troops. Yeah, that's what Netanyahu sounds like. You wanna complain about that? Oh, I'm not offended by the thousands of people that he has murdered, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands that he's murdered. But I don't like the way you're mocking Netanyahu. My feelings are hurt. Good, I want to hurt your feelings. Space Laser Liberal says it's almost like genocidal maniacs don't actually make the best allies in the most volatile region in the world. Part of the deal, am I right? You're 100% right. I mean, look, our audience is both more knowledgeable and braver than any mainstream media reporter in the entire country. So Art Guy saying, seeing Cenk go full tilt in a solo hour makes me appreciate how much restraint he exercises when Anna's present. That's actually a good point, Art Guy. Okay, wait, I got more, but I'll be right back.
I'm a very stable genius.
Back on TYT, the online news network. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur. Let's go to the next story. So in the 23 days since the war in Iran began, how many children have been killed? Well, 206 children killed in Iran and 118 children have been killed in Lebanon. But wait, Lebanon? Our press almost never talks about Lebanon. Well, what's going on in Lebanon? The Israeli empire expands. So they're a fascist empire. The whole point of starting all these wars is not self-defense. It's a giant lie, an Israeli propaganda told by most of the American media. And I'm gonna prove it to you in this segment because we actually have the facts and we have the truth on our side. All they have is propaganda on their side. So the reality is, while everyone else is distracted, Israel is invading southern Lebanon. And we're gonna tell you their intentions with their own words. And so they've killed over 2,000 children have been injured, according to UNICEF's Deputy Executive Director, Ted Chibin. And in Lebanon alone, 2,000 children overall, Lebanon alone, almost 400,000 children have been displaced thanks to Israeli evacuation orders. So they're evacuating, they're telling the Lebanese that you have to evacuate everything south of the Litani River because they're planning to take that for greater Israel. It has nothing to do with self-defense. It has everything to do with growing their empire. Again, the quotes are gonna prove it in a second. And if you don't know, they've already killed 1,000 people in Lebanon and displaced 1 million people in their new ethnic cleansing campaign in southern Lebanon, because that's what fascists do, and that is unfortunately, very tragically, the current state of the Israeli government. So let's prove it. Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich casually suggested that perhaps Israel's borders should be changed. Oh, really? Smotrich told an Israeli radio program that the military campaign in Lebanon needs to end with a, quote, different reality entirely, with both Hezbollah decision, but also with the change of Israel's borders. Of course, they need breathing space. Oh, I'm sorry, that was the Germans. They need a buffer zone. That's what they're going with. Same kind of word play and the same kind of land expansion for a fascist empire. So Smotrich continues, I say here definitively, in every room and in every discussion too, the new Israeli border must be Litani. Okay, so you guys remember everybody in Washington pretended to be outraged and heartbroken over the saying from the river to the sea. They even got me to say, hey, that's a bad idea, because it sounded like people here in America were so offended. Of course, the second half of that statement is from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And that, of course, is the most offensive thing to the Israelis. They're like, how dare you? Those are our slaves we're keeping in those camps forever. By the way, totally factual. They have already voted in the Knesset overwhelmingly to never let the Palestinians go. They voted, they're never gonna have their freedom. You can call them slaves, hostages, whatever you wanna call them. You can call it occupied territories, open air camps, or maybe even concentration camps. But there is no question the Israelis say we will brutalize the Palestinians forever and ever. They voted on it. They voted on it. And almost every member of, in fact, literally every Jewish member of the Knesset that voted yes, crush the Palestinians, never give them their freedom. I say it like that because that is the intent of that action, to say they'll permanently be inferior to us, beneath us. And as you're gonna see here, this is the American press. This is the light version of the quote. I had to go to the Israeli press to find the full quote of Smotrich. And I'm actually gonna show you some of how the American press protects the Israelis so you don't find out how fascist they are. Because if you knew, that they were taking land, you might not want to pony up $330 billion. You might not want to fight their wars for them. You might not want to have your son or daughter killed in their wars if you find out what it's about. So from the river to the sea is actually a different river and sea, but in this case, the Litani River is in Lebanon. So Netanyahu has said that Israel is going to take everything from the river to the sea. And that isn't about anyone being free. Netanyahu flat out said they're going to do land acquisition. So the thing they said the Palestinians were so murderous terrorist over, that chant from the river to the sea, Netanyahu said, oh no, it's not about freedom. For us, it's about slaughter, genocide, and taking your land. And the American press is like, I didn't hear it. Well, or I'll write it once so you guys can know it, but I'm never going to talk about it. Cable news anchors never mention that. Pretend Muslims are the real problem. Okay, so now the Litani River is not even that river, it's in Lebanon. So what the hell are we talking about here? Well, let me show you the Litani River in Lebanon. You see down there, southern Lebanon, and you see there's a river that cuts off the rest of Lebanon. That's the Litani River. So that is squarely in Lebanese territory. And if Israel drew their new border at the Litani River, well, they would literally be stealing Lebanon's land. Oh, that's uncomfortable. Because American media told you they were the victims, that they were doing self-defense. So why did they line up all their troops on the Lebanese border if we're in the middle of a war with Iran? Why isn't Israel sending ground troops? Why do we have to send our ground troops to Iran? Because Israel's busy doing their actual mission, which is to take a part of Lebanon for greater Israel. And the job of the American media is to lie to you and distract you so you don't notice them taking more land. Later, they'll put in our history books, oh, poor Israel was attacked by Iran and Lebanon, and they had no choice but to take their land for self-defense. Okay, so, well, is it just Smotrich? I hear from the American media all the time, oh, it's Smotrich. I mean, he's a pivotal character in the cabinet, but we're gonna pretend he's not a big deal. In fact, I got more on that. No, it's not just him, it's their entire cabinet. So Defense Minister Israel Katz said earlier this month that Lebanon could face, quote, loss of territory if it did not disarm Hezbollah. So, of course, how do you know if they disarmed Hezbollah? It is a purposely impossible standard. So even if the Lebanese army somehow disarmed Hezbollah, Israel would say, nope, we think that there are 7 guns left out there. Well, that's why we had to take all of your territory up to the Litani River. But wait, did you have to do that, or were you already planning to do that? Because both Smotrich and Katz already told you that that's their actual motivation. So I'm not quoting speculation, I'm quoting actual deeply important Israeli ministers. So now let's go to more on this. Over the weekend, but are they doing this? Well, over the weekend, Israel struck a main bridge linking South Lebanon with the rest of the country after ordering its military to destroy all crossings over the Litani River and to step up the demolition of homes near the southern border. So as their ministers promised, they're going to do to southern Lebanon what they did to Gaza. They're going to destroy everything south of the Litani River, say that's now part of greater Israel, and rebuild it with their settlements and their condos. And they'll build those condos on top of the dead Lebanese children and their graves, just like they're planning to build condos in Gaza over the graves of Palestinian children that they murdered. That's how a fascist state operates. Now, if you're watching American media and this is your first time you're getting the truth, you're like, whoa, wait, Cenk, you're saying that they're gonna build condos in Gaza? I heard from ABC and CNN that they were doing self-defense, that they didn't have a choice. They're only staying there temporarily, they're gonna leave. They did this on behalf of the Palestinians, I hear, who were being oppressed by Hamas. Well, now we bring you to Haaretz, an Israeli paper where they actually tell you the truth. And there's a great irony there. The reason why the Israeli press is so much better than the American press is number one, they don't have to worry about, oh, what if schmuck Americans find out what we're up to? And number two, they can't be called anti-Semitic. So they give you the full quote. So Bezalel Smotrich, Israeli finance minister, says the current campaign in Lebanon must end with a fundamental change of situation. The Litani must be our new border with the state of Lebanon. Like the yellow line in Gaza and like the buffer and the crown of Mount Hermon in Syria. Did you know that Israel is occupying Western Syria? No, you never heard that on cable news, right? They are occupying it, and Smotrich just told you they're gonna keep it. What's the yellow line? That's the yellow line that has 53% of Gaza blocked off on Israel's side. And Smotrich just told you, yeah, we're gonna keep that. We're gonna keep Gaza, we're gonna keep parts of Lebanon and Syria, because it's an empire. They have maps of it, it's in their Knesset, it's in their cabinet of greater Israel. And Benjamin Netanyahu has also talked about the glory of greater Israel and how he is going to set that up. Those are all facts, these are quotes brought to you by Pete. There's no question he said it. I say that because the American media will gaslight you from here on out and go, well, I mean, Smotrich is a minor character. In fact, that brings me to showing you the duplicity of American press. So Reuters, in the middle of reporting half of Smotrich's quotes, says this. I'm gonna go down to graphic 8 here. Smotrich, leader of the small far-right party in Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's cabinet, often makes comments that go beyond official Israeli policy. So that is Reuters saying, oh, Smotrich, he's a minor, small figure, and he's way beyond Israeli policy. Now, the Israelis aren't really gonna do that. Wait, why are you running cover for him? Why are you making excuses for him? Now, here's the reality that Reuters is actively hiding from you. Smotrich is not a small part of the government. Smotrich and Ben-Gvir run the two parties that tip the balance. If they leave the government, Netanyahu loses the government and has to go to an election right away. So Smotrich and Ben-Gvir are absolutely critical. And by the way, has Netanyahu disagreed with Smotrich or Ben-Gvir on any of the fascist things that they have said? No, he's never publicly rebuked them. He never says they aren't true. In fact, he then backs them up by saying, we're fighting to kill Amalek, and that Netanyahu said that. Amalek is a quote from the Old Testament about how the Israelis have to murder every man, woman, child, animal, wherever they go. They have to murder all of their opponents, including the children. Netanyahu said that. Netanyahu said from the river to the sea. Netanyahu backed up everything Smotrich and Ben-Gvir are saying. So and by the way, is it true that he's ahead of Israeli policy? Well, you could say he's a little ahead of it. So Reuters, did you check if after Smotrich says something, does Israel actually do it? Or is he just a gadfly, a small little guy that's not that relevant? Well, we checked, and covering the war for the last 3 years, every time Smotrich says something, Israel does it. And in this case, it's not in question. They're already bombing the bridges so people can't come back down to the south from the Litani River. So he says we're definitely doing it, and then the government of Israel is doing it, and we all see it with our own eyes. And Reuters goes, but he's a minor character, tiny little thing, and Israel probably won't listen to him, because if you know that Smotrich is actually in charge with Ben-Gvir and Netanyahu, then you'll realize what fascist terrorists the Israelis are, and we can't have that. We have to pretend that they're the victims, okay? So I got one more piece of framing for you guys, because this is not just about this story, guys. I want you to know the framing, so when you read a story in mainstream media, you know how to pick out their lies. So graphic 7, they say Lebanon was pulled into a regional war on March 2nd when Hezbollah fired missiles into Israel. Since then, Israel has ordered all residents to leave the area south of the Litani River as it pummels the area with airstrikes, viewing it as a Hezbollah stronghold. Wait, you just said they cleared out everybody that was south of the Litani River. Then you said it's a Hezbollah stronghold. So which one is it? They have to add in, it's a Hezbollah stronghold, self-defense, okay? Well, were the 1 million people that they evacuated to north of the Litani River part of Hezbollah? No. Did you talk about how that's an outrage? No. And then in the beginning they said Lebanon was pulled into a regional war when Hezbollah fired missiles. Okay, guys, so Hezbollah and Israel signed a ceasefire. Now, long time ago, you remember the pagers blew up, they had a back and forth, then they signed a ceasefire. Do you know how many times Hezbollah fired bombs and missiles into Israel since the ceasefire and before the Iran war? 0. Do you know how many times Israel fired bombs or missiles into Lebanon, violating the ceasefire? 0, right? Over 1,000. They just ignored the ceasefire entirely. 1,000 missiles into southern Lebanon with absolutely no missiles coming the other direction. Israel is doing an offensive war. They are being aggressive and invading Lebanon. And then after the Iran war, Hezbollah was finally like, well, we already got hit with 1,000 missiles after the ceasefire. And now they're attacking Iran, so the war has started, so we'll join the war. But Reuters frames it as, after Hezbollah, the disgusting Muslims attacked poor little Israel. They had no choice but to go and take their land and ethnically cleanse 1 million people. No, our press is disgustingly biased in favor of the genocidal government of Israel. And our press is deeply racist. To them, a Lebanese life, a Christian or Muslim Lebanese person, they're Arabs. Who cares if you killed hundreds of their children, or in the case of Gaza, tens of thousands of their children? Do you know about October 7th, they say. Well, brother, we're all brokenhearted about October 7th. Then Israel did 70 October 7th in Gaza alone. Are you brokenhearted about that? I mean, we're slightly concerned. But hey, don't criticize Israel too much, okay? Yeah. So you see the propaganda and you see the reality. There's no question Israel is going to try to take southern Lebanon for itself. This war has nothing to do with self-defense. Fascists are in charge of the Israeli government and they are on the march. And what sickens me to my core is that the American government, not because of the American people are totally against the war in Iran. We were against what happened in Gaza. The Democrats were against it from day one. Independents turned against it pretty quickly, and now even the Republicans have turned against it. The American people are good-hearted and they don't want to do these things, but our leaders are deeply, deeply corrupt, both political leaders and media leaders. They work for a foreign country and they drive us into these wars. They drive us to finance genocides, and they do it by tricking you into thinking that Israel is your ally and your victim. Meanwhile, in Israel, they're laughing their asses off, going, the Americans are such suckers. How many hundreds of billions of dollars are they gonna let us take from them? How many wars and trillions of dollars are they gonna spend on our behalf? How many times are they gonna say that we're the victims when we take Golan Heights, Gaza, West Bank, Sinai, and now southern Lebanon and western Syria, and attack 7 of our neighbors? But we'll get the dog American politicians and the dogs in American media to pretend that we're the victims. Now you see with your own quotes, with your own eyes. No, Smotrich is saying, we're not the victims. We're gonna take their land, we're gonna slaughter them, and we're gonna ethnically cleanse them. That is Israel's plan from Israel's ministers' mouths. So don't let American media lie to you. There is no question that's what their plan is, and that's no question that that's what they are executing right now as we speak. All right, last one is on local politics, Gavin Newsom, but also related to Israel. And this goes to explain all the other things that I've been just telling you, okay? So Gavin Newsom seemed like he was gonna be a little bold for a second. In fact, I was quite taken aback by it. I couldn't quite believe it the other day when he said that Israel was an apartheid state. I thought, attaboy. Look, it's easy to say, ha, we told you earlier. It's, you know me, I'm not in that camp. I take yes for an answer. So if he's come in our direction and he's now going to be a little bit more representative of the American voters instead of the donors, great, love to have it. Except he just talked to Politico and walked it back. Say it with me. Of course. Gee, I wonder what happened between those two events. Well, if you don't know, I'll tell you in a second. But Jonathan Martin, oh my God, this interview in Politico was hilarious. Because before they got to Israel, it was like page after page of ass kissing. Are you gonna run? Oh my God, in your book, you're so handsome and rich and poor at the same time. How do you do it? Like you read the interview, it is comical, right? So when it comes to someone who's an outsider on the right or the left, the press is vicious. Oh, we got these pictures from 1987. Is this you doing this? You dirty outsider radical. Jonathan Martin runs into Gavin Newsom. He's like, oh my God, you were with the Gettys and you grew up so, and then your aunt dated a Hollywood star and your mom dated someone else and you're so glamorous and amazing. Plus, though, I hear that your mom was a single mom and you grew up in hardship. Tell us about your hardship as you were partying with the Gettys when you were growing up. This is the comical mainstream media in America. All right, so they finally get to Israel. Martin asks, do you consider yourself a Zionist? Let's pause there because that is such a weird question. Imagine someone's running for president and they're like, do you consider yourself a Peruvian nationalist? Like, what? No, why would I be a nationalist for Peru? Oh yeah? Do you consider yourself a Malaysian nationalist? You'd be like, what on God's green earth are you talking about? I'm running for president of the United States, not of a different country. But every reporter in America thinks this is a normal question. Are you a Zionist? Do you serve Israel? Do you swear an allegiance to Israel? Because if you don't, it's gonna be a real problem. It's gonna be, are you an anti-Semite that you won't swear allegiance to the nationalism of a different country and religion? What? Okay, all right, but I know how I'd answer, okay? But here's how Gavin answered. Do I consider myself a Zionist? He always does the question to buy himself time. I revere the state of Israel. I'm proud to support the state of Israel. I deeply, deeply oppose Bibi Netanyahu's leadership, his opposition to the two-state solution, and deeply oppose how he's indulging the far right as it relates to what's going on in the West Bank. So number one, that's it, he walked it back. Not apartheid, instead he's back to, I revere Israel. Please donors, I didn't mean it. Please keep the money coming, I can't win without your money. Are you going to pretend, if you're in mainstream media, that this isn't about the money? That this isn't about the donors? That Gavin went home and meditated for a while and had a change of heart? You know what? I say it's apartheid, but is it really? Oh, you're gonna give me a couple $1 million? No, I thought about it. No, it's not apartheid. He's got more on that in a second. But also I wanted you to notice that he said like, now I'm trying to thread the needle here. I'm splitting the baby, right? Remember, I deeply, deeply oppose Netanyahu. Oh, you do? And then he says, well, he's falling under the far right influence. Wait, you're taking agency away from Bibi Netanyahu and you're saying, oh, he's being, what, tricked by the far right in Israel? So now apparently you're not even deeply, deeply opposed to poor Netanyahu who's being tricked by Smotrich and Ben-Gvir. Jesus Christ, man. Okay, yeah, I'm sure this will work in the primaries. Yeah, no. I mean, I deeply, deeply oppose a tiny little thing. By the way, he said West Bank, not Gaza. Gaza's where the genocide was, okay? So deeply, deeply, but at the same time, oh, I love Israel. I revere Israel. Yeah, good luck with that strategy, good luck. So then Martin asked, do you regret using the word apartheid to describe Israel? Also a funny question. The assumption is you have to regret it. It isn't, hey, are you doubling down on calling it apartheid? Hey, sounds like you're not calling it apartheid anymore. Or any other way of framing. No, the framing is, do you apologize? Do you bow your head to Israel? Do you regret it? Do you regret calling it apartheid? It's the most obvious apartheid in the world. So what are the 5.5 million Palestinians? Jonathan Martin, what are the 5.5 million Palestinians? Do they have full rights in Israel? Is it really a democracy? Can the 5.5 million Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza Strip vote? No, they can't vote. Or can they be murdered at any time by the Israelis? Yeah, and we just saw it. They just murdered over 72,000 of them, including a stadium full of women and children, 30, 40,000 women and children. Okay, so nope, but no, it can't be apartheid. Of course it's apartheid. Can the Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza Strip vote? Do they have any rights? Are they completely and utterly controlled by Israel? Of course they are. But in Jonathan Martin's mind, Gavin Newsom's mind, and almost everyone in Washington, D.C., those aren't real humans. Those Palestinians are worthless. I mean, if something happens to the Israelis, that's important. Those are real people, okay? So, but do you apologize to the people committing the genocide for calling it apartheid? Again, you know what I would answer. Let's see what Gavin Newsom answered. Does he regret it? I do in this context. I said it and I referenced why I used it. A Tom Friedman article, by the way, a Jewish American commentator for the New York Times who loved the Iraq war, who loves every war that Israel starts, coincidentally. But he's saying like, oh no, I was just quoting Tom Friedman, just quoting, and he's Jewish. It's okay. I'm quoting a Jewish donors. Please, I'm begging you, come back, donors. Okay, a Tom Friedman article. He says in that same sentence where Tom used it in the context of the direction that Bibi is going. So the direction that they're going, quoting Tom Friedman. I didn't mean apartheid. I deeply regret it. Israel, I will serve you. Thank you for the notification, Gavin. We appreciate it. But Martin's not done. He keeps pressing and pressing. He needs, I mean, Gavin at this point is on his knees. He needs him fully flat on the ground, groveling to Israel, right? So he says, not the current state. Huh? Okay, so Gavin says, correct, not the current state of Israel, correct. And that is a legitimate concern I have that I share with Tom, that direction, if that vision and that direction of the far right that Bibi is indulging, that if they see the full annexation of the West Bank, then that's not something, that's a word you may hear others use. Wow, that is a profile in courage right there. So I take back apartheid, I apologize for it. I call myself a Zionist, I revere the state of Israel, but someday in the future, not me, but others might call it apartheid. Have I split the baby? Fine. No, you haven't, Gavin. And you're never going to be able to split this baby. And so, look guys, now I'll do a prediction for you guys. So all of these corporate Democrats, and you'll know them by how much they defend Israel, no matter how gruesome Israel's actions are, and no matter how unpopular it is in the Democratic Party. Look, only 13% of Democratic voters view Israel positively. What kind of a moronic politician would go with the 13% instead of the 87%? And by the way, that poll was done a while back. That number's probably lower now. So why in the world would you choose to lose? That's because they think, oh no, I'll trick the voters. I'll trick the voters with the money that I'm collecting from pro-Israel donors, and then I'll lie to them, just like every Democrat does and every Republican does. And the media will help me, and they will paint me and Israel as the victims, and the Palestinians, the Lebanese, the Iranians, etc., as the dirty terrorist savages. And so that way our racism will work, and we'll trick all the Democratic voters with all the gobs of money I'm collecting from these donors. So the prediction is it's not going to work. Guys, by the time we get to the 2028 primaries, this Iran war is going to have been an absolute disaster of epic proportions. Israel trying to take southern Lebanon is going to turn into a disaster, let alone the AI disaster, that's an economic one. So, but okay, put aside the AI and stick with this issue. When they get to those primaries, and they all have been defending Israel the whole time, and about 2% of Democratic voters are left supporting Israel, how are you gonna win that primary? So all of the propaganda of mainstream media is what these corporate Democrats have leaned on their whole lives. That's okay, MSNBC is gonna lie to them. CNN, New York Times are gonna lie to them, and they're gonna pretend that I'm the good guy. And by the way, in the midst of this piece, they're like, now Gavin Newsom's #1. He's the leading candidate. Remember, he took back apartheid. He loves Israel and reveres it. Now he's #1. He's the top candidate. You should really think about voting for Gavin Newsom because he's rich and poor, okay? And he's looking out for you and the donors. So remember, Gavin's the guy. Yeah, Politico can say it. You know how many people listen to real people outside of Washington read Politico? Approximately 0, none. Oh, but I have Axios, Politico, and Semaphore covered. Oh, you do, great. You'll have a bunch of senators and congressmen on your side and a lot of defense contractors, and you'll have 0 regular human beings. So enjoy that strategy. It's not just about Gavin Newsom. All the people who are choosing the donor class, choosing foreign governments and corporations above their voters, I believe are going to lose and lose badly in 2028. And I hope to God that that is true, because they would ruin the Democratic Party and this country if they one more time made false promises, then got into office and served ExxonMobil and Lockheed Martin and Pfizer and Israel. And that is exactly what they're planning to do, and Gavin Newsom just told you. We'll be right back.
Okay.
Every day, the Young Turks delivers 2 hours of solid, fact-based, timely news and progressive commentary on all the day's most important stories. We keep our viewers informed while also providing perspective and insight on the news we cover, so you understand not only what's happening, but also what's happening behind the scenes, the stories behind the stories.
We play musical chairs and put these children in one awful detention facility to the next. That's what's happening at the border.
The things that got him banned, he's still spreading. So presumably, I think it's reasonable to say that if you allow him back on the website, he's going to do it again.
Any legal voter that we deem not willing to vote for my side shouldn't vote because it'll replace me that's supposed to vote for my side. That's not how voting works. That's not how democracy works.
And while many people following today's political news can get discouraged about the direction of the nation and the world, that's not us. At TYT, we're genuinely optimistic about the future, and with good reason. Today, wide majorities of Americans agree with our progressive stances on issues ranging from healthcare and education to climate, immigration, and wages. The rising generation of young people are also overwhelmingly progressive in their political beliefs and policy objectives, and they're increasingly flexing their muscle as voters and activists to demand change from our elected officials. The traditional mainstream media is mostly AWOL. They, along with the government and many other cherished institutions, have been captured by corporate interests. Audiences sense that they're not getting the whole story or even the truth from once trusted outlets, whether broadcasting cable TV news networks or national newspapers and magazines. The antidote is the Young Turks. Unlike mainstream corporate outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to Big Pharma, and we don't carry water for the Republican or Democratic parties. So watch us Monday to Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, and join the thousands of progressives around the globe who tune in every day for TYT's unmatched, award-winning content and see what it's like to experience a news organization that only answers to you.
Indisputable, exclusive, disputable, exclusive. We brought you this first. No other news agency has this video. No other news agency has this story.
Every week on Indisputable, we do original, exclusive, investigative reporting you'll find nowhere else.
Our reports have been viewed by millions. Hosted by Sean King, Ben Crump, Senator John Ossoff.
You, through your investigative reporting, unearthed very troubling allegations about specific forms of abuse and discrimination in the federal prison system.
We catching these cases on camera. Just imagine the things that we don't see.
Our groundbreaking investigations and exclusive interviews bring you the real voices no one else wants you to hear. We tell the stories.
Imagine a prison that is so racist, the corrections officers contact me. That is a life or death situation being created. A black woman who was driving for Uber was allegedly assaulted by a white male passenger. After we got involved, roughly 24 hours later, the police all of a sudden opened up an investigation. What was going through your mind when bullets were simply flying inside of your vehicle?
Honestly, I thought I was going to die.
Did these officers ever say that you fit the description of somebody they were looking for? Did they say that?
Never.
Okay, that means they lied.
And we want you to be part of our truth-telling movement. Send pictures and video of stories no one else is telling and a 1 or 2 paragraph summary of the story to Indisputable's exclusive tip line at indvideos@tyt.com.
If you have more information about what's happening at this particular facility, please let me know.
Together, we're challenging the system, and together, we're making a difference.
I have the entire background to this story, and it is going to make your blood boil.
Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, unveiling the truth, empowering the people. Weekdays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific.
I hate flies.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk Uygur and Yasmin Aliyah Khan with you guys. You can catch Yaz on Rebel Headquarters as well, right here on YouTube. Yaz, before we get started, I am going to do one super chat read here. Mark Jacob 5 wrote in, a few days old, but Katie Tur on MS Now criticized Trump for starting the Iran war, but also criticized others who are saying that it was on behalf of Israel. Guys, if you're not watching television, it's hilarious. They're all pretending this war has nothing to do with Israel. Like, no, Trump started this war. Yes, I mean, it's a tiny little factor. It's just a propaganda machine. It's amazing. All right, anyways, Yaz, what do you got for us?
Yeah, so more of that, because today we learned that the Trump administration is deploying 3,000 more ground troops to the Middle East. Cenk, I know you're coming in hot from the first hour, so what is your 2 cents on this before we get into the story?
Yeah, so we should not be putting any ground troops in. I'm gonna keep asking the question until one other human being asks in American media, why isn't it Israeli ground troops? They're the ones who wanted the war, but they're now ordering our ground troops in to die on behalf of Israel. So wait till you find out the rest of the story and how disastrously this is gonna turn out.
Yeah, so right as of now, there is no formal order to put those troops on the ground in Iran, but now Trump has the option to do so if he wants to. And that means that in the past 2 days alone, Trump has both opened the door to negotiations with Iran and surged even more troops into the Middle East. So over 4,000 Marines have already been deployed. Meanwhile, a former Trump administration official is stating that Trump has no good options for ending this war, which is very, very comforting for the rest of us. General Jim Mattis, of all people, served as Trump's defense secretary from 2017 to 19, if you'll recall. Yesterday, Mattis had this to say. He said, in Iran right now, if we declared victory, we would now say they own the strait. You'd see attacks for every ship that goes through. And that's been corroborated by reporting from the Wall Street Journal. Allegedly, Arab leaders told the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps that the Strait of Hormuz should be governed by a neutral committee. So the IRGC replied that Iran should collect fees from transiting ships, just as Egypt does now with the Suez Canal. And there is more from Mattis. He had a lot to say, and he said it quite plainly. He said, we are in a tough spot, ladies and gentlemen. I can't identify a lot of options. Neither side has the ability right now to move the other side off of where they're at. Never in history has air power alone changed a regime. Great, so Mattis isn't the only one who's nervous about the war. Yesterday, the Chevron CEO, Mike Wirth, had this to say. He said, there are real physical manifestations from the closure of the Strait of Hormuz that are working their way around the world and through the system that I don't think are fully priced into the futures curve on oil. So what does that mean? What he's saying is that Wirth believes that right now oil is actually underpriced, and the price increases we've already seen aren't as bad as they really should have been by now. Meanwhile, the Trump administration is shutting down renewable energy projects as if that is going to help make anything better for the average American consumer. So on Monday, Doug Burgum's Interior Department announced it will pay a French energy company, Total Energies, nearly $1 billion to stop plans to build 2 wind farms off the coast of New York and North Carolina. Instead, Total Energies will take the money it had paid during the Biden administration from federal offshore land leases and reinvest some of it into a liquefied natural gas plant in Texas. Total Energies CEO described the agreement to forfeit its leases for US offshore wind farms as innovative. Sure, going backwards is the same thing as like innovating for the future. So we'll end with a piece of writing from a Chinese think tank, actually, that was republished by one of DropSite News reporters. And here's what it says. It says, a protracted Middle East war would be a period of strategic opportunity for China, one that drains US resources while pushing global capital, industry, and trade routes towards China as the next best option. Turmoil at sea leaves US allies dependent on seaborne energy, vulnerable, expanding demand for alternative land routes, and accelerating China's revival of continental power. Capital will initially flee to the US dollar, but as war drags on, it will seek new safe havens. Hong Kong has already emerged as a preferred destination for Middle Eastern money, and the war will accelerate the shift towards a global industrial chain resting on US demand, China as the hub, and the rest of the world in supporting roles, handing China pricing power and rule-setting authority. Cenk, there's an awful lot going on here. We are seeing Americans leaving this country at record numbers, something we haven't seen since the Great Depression, really. We're also seeing people looking to leave the military and end their commitment to the country because they are so unsure of what this president is going to do. He now has the option to send even more troops over to the Middle East if he wants to. And at this rate, whatever he does with that option is anyone's guess, right? Because if he does have a plan, he's not communicating that to the American people, which is very disrespectful because he's sending all of our money over there. Our entire military arsenal is being blown literally over there. And now he's trying to send our people over there. And this is the reason why people voted for Donald Trump, is because he said, I'm the anti-war president and I'm not gonna send your children anywhere to die in battle. And that is exactly what he's doing now. It's incredible to me that any of the people who voted for him in 2024 still support him after seeing all of this. But here we are, and gas prices are going up, and apparently it should be a lot worse than it is and could potentially get a lot worse very, very quickly. We are reinvesting in natural gas instead of going forward into some kind of economy that would wean us off of our dependency on the Middle East and all of these oil producing countries. And it's very frustrating because we're just moving backwards, and we're doing all of this for a reason that our government can't even explain to the American people.
Yeah, there's something very depressing in this story that I'm going to get to in a sec. But you're absolutely right. When our allies asked Donald Trump, when are we going to know the war is over? He said, "Oh, I'll know it in my bones." Now we got to worry about Donald Trump's bones and bone spurs. And can you get a bone spur so we can get out of this war like you did last time with Vietnam? So this absurd. It's absurd for a US president to tell allies, "I'll know it in my bones." That means we don't have a goal, we don't have a plan. And that's been clear from day one. So when I saw Mattis out there saying we're kind of stuck in this war, I thought, oh, I got nervous about it. Here comes another ex-general, probably working for a defense contractor, out there going, no, we got to stay. We have to send in ground troops. Israel's right. Lockheed Martin and Raytheon are right? So, but it turns out not really. And we're fair show in America. I watched what he said, and he's kind of right. He's saying, look, we shouldn't be here. Not that he literally said that, but this is what he was going towards and what I thought he was implying, right? So whether we like it or not that we're in this quagmire and we're stuck here, we are stuck. And he said, because see, why I'm giving him credit for being honest is that the lackeys for the administration go, oh no, there's no problems at all. We're winning, it's fantastic, we got to put in the ground troops. He's like, no, both sides are unreasonable. We're asking, and so what does he mean by that? The Iranians now go, well, look, turns out closing the Strait of Hormuz is awesome. And we're now running half the world, and the whole world's in a panic over oil prices because we closed the Strait of Hormuz, we're going to charge you for it, right? And so we've actually gone backwards in the war and they've gained more leverage. But now, so the Iranians are now asking for reparations, saying America has to pay for everything that it destroyed in Iran. Our chances of doing that is approximately zero. And then we're telling the Iranians, not only do you have to get rid of your nukes, which you've already gotten rid of and we've bombed 120 times, but you have to also let us run your foreign policy, let Donald Trump run the Strait of Hormuz, and get rid of every missile you have. And their chance of accepting that is zero. So Mattis is right, we can't leave, and we can't open up the Strait of Hormuz, and we can't put in ground troops. So Quagmire 101, Donald Trump got dog walked by Israel right into this inescapable trap. Once you've entered the trap, you can't leave. It's an escape room that you can't escape. So now we're totally screwed because now look, we could leave, but we'd have to make a deal with the Iranians and we'd have to hope that the Iranians take the deal, which is we'll leave if you reopen the Strait of Hormuz. But we can't leave without reopening the Strait of Hormuz because then Iran will charge us billions and billions of dollars, will declare victory in the war and have enormous leverage now in that area. Israel won't let us leave, the Saudis won't let us leave, but there's actual real reasons not to leave now. But if we put in ground troops, that is a guaranteed disaster. More of them will get killed, we'll have to put more in, and we can't possibly win a ground war. Couldn't win one with Iraq or Vietnam or Afghanistan. And Iran is way more capable and way larger than any of those countries. So we're in a world of hurt here. And then finally, when you get to China, that stuff that Yaz read you is indisputable. Like, who wants to deal with America and its allies constantly, war after war after war? And they want stability so they could do trade and business. The Chinese are like, ironically, the so-called communists have hung a giant sign on their country, open for business. Meanwhile, America has put up a sign saying, run by Israel, we'll start needless wars and destroy our own economy. Don't do business with us because we'll sell you out and create a war that'll cause you tremendous damage. Where do you think they're gonna go? They're gonna go to China. So the depressing news, Yaz, is it is very difficult to get out of this war without causing significant damage to ourselves. We've already made a mistake that is going to be very hard to recover from, even in the best case scenario where we make some sort of deal with the Iranians and come back home. We're gonna be worse off than when the war started. But every day we stay in the war, it gets worse and worse, not better and better. You're muted, yes. Yes, you're muted. Happens.
All right. Yeah, this is starting to feel very reminiscent of wars like in Vietnam, where we would go into something and there wasn't really as distinctive a plan, and we would just keep throwing people at it because we didn't have a way out of these things. And isn't that war 101? You never start a fight that you can't win. That was how it was supposed to be. But as far as people turning to China now, we're already starting to see a lot of that happen. We're seeing even our allies who are saying, I'm going to start relying more on China than the United States. And that includes countries like France and Canada. So it's a lot going on. And also, the reparations. The United States, we do not pay reparations, not even to our own people. We'll demand them of other countries and we will cripple their economies in doing so, but we don't pay reparations. We will find other ways to cripple our own economy, and we are doing that very, very well. Right now, our entire economy is already hanging by a thread. It is an incredibly large global Ponzi scheme, and that is the only reason why we have an economy right now. The American people are suffering, things are not getting better for them, and everything that our government is doing is seemingly almost intentionally making things worse for the American people. They have said that they don't care about the affordability crisis right now. It's just not their concern. They have other things going on. So they're going to continue sending all of our money out of this country against the will of the American people. This administration has the lowest approval rating that we've ever seen, and they don't care because they can just do whatever they want. Congress isn't stopping them. The Supreme Court isn't stopping them. The president certainly is not stopping them. International ire is not stopping them. They do not have the support, but they're doing it anyway.
Yep. All right, we got to take a break here. When we come back, internal Democratic fights. It's ugly and amusing. We'll be right back.
China.
Let's go to Super Chat. Rose Orozco says, March 28th, no kings. Yeah, they're finally doing a protest against the war, so thank God for that. I guess they got permission or something. Elliot ZP writes in, member on your website, considering becoming a YouTube member too. If I do that, will I still be able to send Super Chats? I can't do that on the member stream if I switch to the member stream from the website. It's a great technical question, Elliot, and thank you, brother, for doing that. I'm not positive, but I believe you can do Super Chat no matter what. Yes, it might depend on the stream that you're on, but you could switch between streams too. So anyways, I love you for considering doing a membership on YouTube as well. And of course, everybody on our website is tyt.com/join. Make it make sense says, I don't like the war or how it started, but there better not be a payday for Iran. They need to pay the US. We should get 50-cent gas for years. Brother, they ain't gonna pay us, and we're not gonna pay them. This is all fantasy land. So that means the war is not gonna come close to ending. Kuluhulu, God, I've pronounced that 1,000 ways. Anyway, all wrong. MBS will just give Trump another light bright glowing orb, and Trump will send our troops to die for Israel and Saudi Arabia. That sounds about right. So then we go to our members on TYT.com. Art Guy says, Cenk Solo Hour, what's this, 2015? A lot of people wrote in like that. Remote Dragon said, intense Cenk first hour, spent more time listening and pondering. And I'm out of time. All right, we'll be back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Yaz with you guys. So number one, we want to find out more about our members, so help us out. It takes about 30 seconds, it's 3 super easy questions. Members and non-members, all of our viewing audience, so tyt.com/you to answer those 3 simple questions. Also, Joe Kent is gonna be on the show on Thursday, so don't miss Thursday's episode. You all know, 6 to 8 p.m. every day, Monday through Friday. And so we got a lot more for you guys. So Yaz, what's next?
All right, we're gonna look at what's going on in Maine. So as the primary race heats up in Maine, Democratic Senate hopeful Governor Janet Mills hit her opponent, the progressive candidate Graham Platner, with an attack ad. Unfortunately for her, I don't think it went the way she thought it was gonna go. The people she was hoping to win over with the ad weren't impressed, and we have footage of that from a town hall that was leaked. But Cenk, this is just the establishment Dems being the establishment Dems all over again. We've seen this before. What are your thoughts? Your 2 cents.
Yeah, the good news about this story is in the old days, they would have gotten away with all of this, but these days everybody's getting caught up in here. So I love the way the corporate Democrat got caught in this story. Tell us all about it, Yes.
Yeah, all right. So Drop Site just released a leaked video of a town hall that Mills held with Maine voters. And the town hall was only about 30 minutes long, but the negative nature of the ad came up quite a few times within those 30 minutes, which I thought was interesting. So here's a look at the ad before we go on.
Did you know Graham Platner wrote that women worried about rape need to, quote,
not get so up they wind up having sex with someone they don't mean to.
It's disgusting. Platner wrote to avoid rape, women should, quote,
act like an adult for sake.
Graham Platner, seriously.
We blame the victim? That's a horrible thing to say.
Disqualifying. I have not seen this.
He's a bully.
This guy gives off a vibe.
Just no way I could vote for you.
No.
Graham Platner, the closer you look, the worse it gets.
Okay, so we will get to the response to the ad in a minute, but you may have noticed that the ad featured 4 women, each only identified by their first names and last initials. The women presented as just average Maine voters, just everyday people, are actually establishment Democrats who were recruited to be in the video. And that is very fitting because Mills is very much backed by the party establishment. So case in point, Janet Mills has been endorsed by Chuck Schumer, while Grant Platner has been endorsed by Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. But back to the ad, here's what one woman had to say to Mills regarding the ad during the town hall.
Say that I'm a member of the Me Too generation, and I was offended by your ad. And I would very much like you to run a clean campaign, like Joe Baldacci said, let's have a positive campaign. I don't think anybody should be attacking another Democrat right before the primary and using underhanded means and using that kind of language. Okay, I think you can talk about what you have done has been wonderful. So speak about what you have done and don't demolish your candidate in such an underhanded way. And I'm sorry, that's not a question. That's a statement.
All right, so Mills did respond by saying that the people have the right to know who it is that they're voting for, even though all the stuff that she put in the ad was stuff that was, drug up from forever ago. But also she said that this was about electability, which is a line that a lot of establishment Dems love to throw out, especially whenever they're losing to a more progressive candidate. She later says that Maine needs to vote for the Dem who is more likely to beat Susan Collins. And I guess she thinks that that should be her. It's the same thing that we heard time and time again on the campaign trail with the Democrats. It said you got to vote for whoever it is that's going to beat Donald Trump, and that was really the only talking point that a lot of that we heard from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. But if you're wondering whether or not Mills is actually establishment, here's her response to a question regarding campaign donations.
This is a Zoom question from Rob Voucher. Is it on? Governor, how do you feel about national party big money being poured into a specific candidate before the state has a chance to have their own primary and make up their own minds? And do you support, along with that, do you support the Maine Democratic Party's neutrality rule?
I respect Go ahead. I respect the neutrality rule. I don't know what big money you're talking to. I don't have the big money here. I don't have big money from the National Party. What, are you kidding me? We were both recruited or asked to run by national Democrats. But I don't think either of us has any big money from any source.
Well, unfortunately, Drop Site is reporting that what Mills said isn't exactly true, because on the day Mills announced her Senate campaign, the DSCC formed a joint fundraising committee with her called Maine Senate Victory 2026. So there's that. And if Mills is sounding a little bit desperate to you, it's probably because she is, or she's getting there. Polls from various polling groups from late last year up till now have all found Platner to be ahead of Mills, in one instance by as much as 38 points. And you can see we have a graphic there for you. The range is big, but the most is by 38 points. But either way, even if it's by just 2 points, Platner is leading in every poll, and it seems reasonable to assume that that would continue. The main primary is in June of this year, so there's a couple of months to go, and so we're gonna see how this goes. But Cenk, here in Texas, we just had a somewhat contentious Democratic primary, and it did get to the point where both candidates were trying to be cordial to one another, and then eventually the attack ads did start to come up, and it really doesn't help anybody because I guess it's not really an apples to apples comparison, because here we had two progressive-ish candidates. Over there in Maine is the progressive, and then Janet Mills, whatever you want to describe her as. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So Graham Platner is not just leading in the primary, he's leading in the general election. He's doing better than Mills is against Susan Collins. Presumably, the Democrats would like to beat Susan Collins. And they've been trying with corporate Democrat after corporate Democrat. And every time they tell us, oh no, we're gonna get the Republicans in the suburbs to vote for us instead. And that's our genius strategy. And every time Susan Collins wins. For the first time, they've got a guy beating Susan Collins. So why don't they go with him? That's the part of the story that, of course, the rest of the media doesn't tell you, which is that Graham Platner is not supporting Israel, and Graham Platner is not supporting corporate donors. So the Democratic Party is now wasting your money, if you contributed to them, to give it to Mills' losing race in the primary, because they're like, gosh, I hope against hope that we have the weaker candidate, because then either Mills or Susan Collins will support Israel and all the corporations that donate to both the Republican and Democratic parties. So even if Mills loses the general election, Schumer thinks my donors are happy anyway. So that's why he's trying to hurt the candidate who might actually win that race for his own party. But look, we've covered that type of story for 20 years here on the Young Turks. And we've been screaming it online. And with me in particular, definitely screaming it. And the mainstream media was an immovable object. You just ran into their brick wall. They're like, no, Mills is the best candidate, even though she is losing, she is a better candidate. Graham Platner is disqualified. That's there, by the way, if you wanna know if something is coming from an establishment Democrat, the key word is disqualifying. They love to say that. Because they, in their mind, and because this used to be true, they go, oh, I have disqualified you. Graham Platner is already disqualified. I found something of his from 1987. Did you know that his underwear was not clean and he had not washed behind his ears back in 1993? Yeah, he might have been 13 at the time, but still,
The air behind the air is so dirty. I asked Susan M., who's an apparatchik for my campaign, and Susie G., who's an apparatchik for Schumer, and they all agree he's been disqualified, okay? I don't like his vibe. He doesn't take corporate money like the rest of us, so I don't like his vibe. If you vote for him, you might find out we're all crooks. Yeah, no wonder you don't like his vibe. And then finally they said, you know what, after seeing these comments from years and years and years ago that our Oppo research found against a Democratic candidate who might be Susan Collins and that we're using all over Maine television now to help the Republicans, it says here that you said many years ago something I am deeply uncomfortable with. Disqualified, right? Well, the good news is, guys, it isn't working anymore. He isn't disqualified and he's leading and he's gonna kick her ass. Okay, he's almost certainly gonna win that primary, and my guess is he'll win the general election. And what I can't wait for, Yaz, is for mainstream media to come up with excuses that, well, I mean, he won the general election, but he said, no, tattoo, he has the wrong tattoo, right behind the ears, tattoo, and wrong underwear in '87. No, you can't, disqualifying. Oh, he won the general election, you should take no note from that. No, remember, the only Democrats that are good Democrats are the ones that go and stuff their money full of corporate donations from Pfizer and Northrop Grumman and Johnson & Johnson and Benjamin Netanyahu. Remember, corruption is the winning path. Mainstream media will tell you, and the Democratic, I'm gonna throw a lot of adjectives in there, but let's leave it at corporate Democrats in Washington will tell you. But the polling indicates that the American people have woken up. So at the end of the day, as I view this as a super positive story, their old tricks that I've been fighting for decades are now no longer working. The American people have woken up, and it's a beautiful day in America.
Yeah, long overdue, as I'm sure we would say, and all of our listeners would agree. And Platner did respond to the ad. Whenever it came out, he released a video on social media. It was like 5 minutes long. He didn't deny saying the things that were in the ad. He said, yeah, I said them, but it was a different time in my life and I'm a different person now. So he did address it without denying any of it. But the Dems are generally disappointing. I know we here on the left have been disappointed in them for a very long time, but especially now when there's so much going on in the world. Trump is talking about sending troops to the Middle East, and the Dems, where are they? They're not even speaking out against this very much. I haven't heard anything from them. They're not, even if they said anything, they're not doing anything. They are not reliable. People cannot count on them to keep the American people safe or to even stand up to somebody like Donald Trump. So what is the point of them even being there? And how do they have the audacity to still try to convince people that they are still the better option than somebody like Graham Platner? And I covered this story for Rebel HQ, and I did say, one thing with Donald Trump, the reason why he got elected in the first place, both in 2016 and in 2024, is because somehow he convinced the American people that he was gonna be the guy to fight for them, right? I don't know why they believed it, but that is what they believed, and that is why they voted for him. They said he's an outsider, he's gonna fight for me, he's gonna fight the establishment. He isn't the establishment. The American people are inherently anti-establishment. And so when establishment Democrats come here telling you, vote for the establishment that is currently doing nothing, it's a very, very hard sell. And I'm very pleased to see that it is not working on the American people anymore, at least not to the degree that it used to. There used to be a very strong incumbent pull in the United States. If you're the incumbent, you get voted back into office. That is not necessarily the case anymore, and I'm here for it. We're very, very glad to see it. And one more point before we go. This is, again, we can draw a lot of parallels between this election and what happened in 2024 with Kamala Harris and even with Joe Biden. And the Democrats did their own audit on what happened during the 2024 election, why Kamala Harris lost. And then they were like, you know what, we're not gonna release it. And the reason why they didn't release it is because what they found, they said, you know what, we're not gonna move from it anyway. They found that so many people did not vote for Kamala Harris because she was establishment, because she refused to back down from American support for Israel. And they said, regardless of how the American people feel about that, we're not going to move from that position. So it was a non-starter, it didn't matter. And they were like, don't need to publish it. So if they don't care what the American people think or feel, What are they good for? I don't know. I'm running out of excuses for them.
Yeah, so Mills is, of course, massively in favor of Israel. She promises she's going to send all your money to Israel if she's elected. That sounds like such a winning strategy. And she is against 87% of Democratic voters who now have a poor image of Israel. Only 13% viewed positively, but they don't really care what your stinking opinion is. You're an inconvenience. If you're a Democratic voter, you're an inconvenience to Democratic leadership. You're in between and you're in the way of them helping their donors. They just have to find a way around you. Well, good news, they can't find a way around Graham Platner right now. And the more desperate they get and the more disqualifying videos they put out, the bigger hole that they create for themselves. I love that those ladies in Maine caught her. As you notice there, they weren't opposed to Janet Mills. They just found out the tricks, the dirty tricks she was doing, and they didn't like it. There you go. I love those Democratic voters finding out what reality is and going in the right direction. Let's go get our party back. All right, we got to take a quick break. When we come back, ice baby, but not really at the voting polls. We're worried about it. And all of a sudden it's united all of the Republicans. Interesting, we'll be right back.
Shohei Ohtani.
All right, back on TYT. Let's go to TYT.com. Gemma Lee says corporate Dems do not want to be Susan Collins. Most corporate Dems like Schumer are to the right of Susan Collins. It's relatively true, like it doesn't really matter because it's not on the political spectrum, right? They don't, both Janet Mills, Chuck Schumer, Susan Collins, all those people are not right or left. They're either for you or for their donors. And they're 100% for their donors. So for them, Mills and Collins is identical because they're both definitely going to swear allegiance to the donors. Whereas Graham Platner is unacceptable to Democratic leadership because he doesn't hate Democratic voters. Old Dirty Pastor says, it all goes away if we just give them Trump and Bibi. Imagine we turn them in. Iran, you win. Open up the Strait of Hormuz. Here's Trump and Bibi. Less likely. Nerd Ferguson, although it is a nice dream. Nerd Ferguson says the deal should be the US doesn't do war stuff to Iran. Iran doesn't stop the shipments of oil and doesn't do war stuff to us. Done. Yes, that's exactly right. That's what I've been saying. But that deal is too sensible. So America will never offer it because Israel will not give us permission. They're like, that deal would only help you. Where do you spend trillions for me? Shut up, America, and back to the war. And that is actually what happens. And you'll see it with your own eyes as you have throughout. All right, this is gonna be fun. Hannah Hartman says, hello from Tuscarawas, County Young Democrats. We're hosting another TYT watch party tonight. Love you guys in Tuscarawas. We'll be back. All right, back on TYT. Janky has with you guys more news.
More news, let's roll the tape.
We are now deploying ICE to fix the airports, which we are, by the way. Libs are losing their minds because it's actually working. And ICE is helping by arresting criminal aliens. How many illegals fly in our country? Can you deploy ICE to hospitals or to nursery, daycares in Minneapolis? Can we do that? Can we deploy ICE to every voting booth in America? Would that fix the fraud? Of course it would.
Whether or not it's working is debatable, but President Trump's decision to deploy ICE agents to help at major airports across the US has been met with excitement from MAGA talking heads who can't help but wonder, where will ICE go next? Cenk, we will get more into the reactions in just a second, but first, what are your 2 cents on ICE agents being at the airports at all?
So this one, I have 2 different thoughts on it. Number one, totally unnecessary. All this is nonsense, and the airports is less of a big deal than the voting booths. But they're both in an effort to intimidate people rather than to actually do their job. We'll explain why. And we'll show you how the Republicans are uniting around this idea, because it kind of leads to an authoritarian state. The only question is who's going to run that authoritarian state. We'll get to all of that. But on the other hand, I don't want people on the left falling into this trap either. So I'll explain all of that after you give us the facts.
All right, so on Sunday, Trump announced that ICE agents would be deployed to 14 major airports across the US to help TSA during the DHS shutdown. So on Monday, ICE will be going to airports to help our wonderful TSA agents who have stayed on the job despite the fact that the radical left Democrats who are only focused on protecting hardline criminals who have entered our country illegally are endangering the US by holding back the money that was, oh my God, this is a run-on sentence, that was long ago agreed to with signed and sealed contracts and all. Whew. But watch, no matter how great a job ICE does, the lunatics leading the incompetent Dems will be highly critical of their work. They will do a fantastic job. The great Tom Homan is in charge. Yes, the great Tom Homan. So despite the fact that ICE agents are limited in what duties they can do, and they don't even know how to do the job of being a TSA agent because they're not trained to do that job, just knowing that ICE agents were at airports sent some conservatives into a frenzy, because in their eyes, this is now justification to send ICE to all kinds of places, including polling sites during the midterms. Take a look.
ICE is there. Like if ICE shows up at a polling site, and I show up at a polling site, I'm not worried about ICE because I am not an illegal immigrant. It seems to me that actually making sure illegal immigrants do not show up at polling sites is not a horrible use of ICE, actually.
The ICE agents at the airports to help out, and remember they said they're not going to work the x-rays, it's too complicated. They're not trained for it, but they're trained to, wait for it, check IDs. That's why it's perfect training for the fall of 2026. This is why it's such a brilliant, this is another 5D chess move for President Trump. Let's get ICE into the airports to help out to the lines. They can't work the machines. You know what to do? Just walk them down. Hey, we're a speed thing too. Can we check your IDs? That's what's going to happen in the fall of 26, because folks, we're tired of having elections stolen.
Why are we even talking about the SAVE Act? You don't need the SAVE Act if you don't have a nation overrun with criminal aliens. Do we have the will to save Western civilization? It's got to start with this. It's got to start with getting the people who are antithetical to Western civilization and humanity and our way of life and America, like the hell out of this country.
Yeah, I really wish that we would stop pretending Trump is some kind of chess prodigy, because he just isn't. I doubt he even knows how to play chess. But Steve Bannon went a little further than that. While speaking to Mike Davis, the president and founder of the Article 3 project, both men thought that ICE being at airports is actually the perfect test for the 2026 midterms.
We can use what's happening with these ICE helping out at the airports. We can use this as a test run, as a test case to really perfect ICE's involvement in the 2026 midterm election, sir?
Yeah, I think we should have ICE agents at the polling places, because if you're an illegal alien, you can't vote, right? It's against the law. It's a federal crime for you to vote in federal elections. And so if you're an American citizen, you should be happy that ICE is there, because you're not going to have illegal aliens canceling out your vote.
Pick them out of line starting today, and maybe the lines get shorter.
All right, so ICE has been in our airports already for a day. I know we have them here in Houston, and I know we've all seen the footage of ICE agents just kind of standing around, getting in the way at airports, even though they're fully in their garb and, armed for whatever reason. So to be clear on what ICE is actually doing at airports, there is some reporting on that. From CNN, they are not trained, for example, to operate the understaffed security checkpoints that are often the source of delays. Instead, White House border czar Tom Homan said they will assist with simpler tasks, which seems very fitting for them, ideally freeing up more TSA employees to perform critical and specialized security work. you're freeing up the TSA agent. They were already there working anyway. Okay, so according to Homan, they could relieve TSA employees of other tasks like monitoring exits and crowd control and allow them to be redirected to specialized screening work. But in reality, they're not really doing any of that. They're not doing anything that we can see, and they're certainly not checking IDs the way that Steve Bannon hoped they would. So reporting says that in the Atlanta airport, ICE had a constantly visible presence, but did not appear to be helping with check-ins or directing crowds, according to CNN's Ryan Young. One group observed by a CNN producer appeared to spend several hours largely talking amongst themselves, wandering the floor and getting something to eat. And I have seen a lot of footage there. They've been kind of standing around the edges there, they said, clearly not involved in helping process the thousands of passengers trying to make their way there. That's from CNN's Ed Lavandera reporting from Houston. IAH has been a disaster. It's not exactly clear how they're helping, how they're alleviating the pressure that this airport is under. And even Senator Cory Booker had something to say. He told CNN that all he saw ICE doing was roaming around, and that's a quote. Now, immigration enforcement is still on the table, but even Trump said that that is not their priority right now. He said they love it because they're able to arrest illegals as they come into the country. That's very fertile territory, but that's not why they're there. They're really there to help. Cenk, okay, these are international airports where we have ICE agents at. There's plenty of, illegal people in going through these airports. How is ICE to know which one of these illegal people are planning to stay in our country or they're just passing? None of this makes any sense to me. Does it make any sense to you? And is there any point in sending ICE now to polling sites? And is this something that we probably should have expected?
Yeah, so let's talk about airports first, then we'll go to the voting area. So at airports, they'll just be checking ID. First of all, no, they won't, but let's say that they were. What happens next? Or what happens when they see people getting off of an airplane and they're like, oh my God, they're all brown, what do we do, right? But wait, a lot of them are American citizens, a lot of them have visas, almost all of them have visas. Usually the way that a lot of folks come to this country and become undocumented is they'll come in on a perfectly legitimate visa and then they'll just stay after the visa runs out. So, but you can't get them at the airport because they have a visa, right? So are you going to preemptively arrest people with a visa? They came in here perfectly legally, so that doesn't make any sense. But the most important part of it, guys, is what ICE normally does is they arrest people that they think are undocumented. So if you do that at airports, what are we gonna have? We're gonna have mayhem. We're gonna have ICE agents tackling people in Terminal 7. So is that what we want? Okay, so now we're gonna go to like spring break vacation or go to visit your family and there's ICE agents like tackling half the people in the airport and what if they start doing shootings like they did in Minneapolis and in other places? Why don't you just have the government function? Why don't you have the government function and have the TSA agents do their job and then ICE can go do whatever their job is? So now the much worse situation is the polling booths, right? And it's interesting that Steve Bannon, who pretends to be a populist, I'm worried about Israel and I'm a populist and I'm against war, but a lot of times I'm in favor of it. And secretly I was working with Epstein. And then Ben Shapiro comes in and hey, look at that, they agree. And Benny Johnson agrees, they all agree. Oh, a surveillance state would be great. And culture wars are awesome. Because you know who's really running this country? The undocumented immigrant that came in with $0. They have all of this power. Now, don't look at the people actually running the country, the donor class, right? Don't the Epstein class. Don't look at him. So Ben Shapiro loves it. He jumps in. He's like, yes, ice, baby. That's what we need. Okay, bring back vanilla ice. I need any kind of ice. Ice, maybe. Yes. So culture wars. He loves it. Attack the poor brown people. Whatever you do, don't look up. Don't look up at the donor class. So now at the voting areas, what are they gonna do? again, same thing. Are they going to tackle people? Are they going to arrest people in the voting areas? Guys, we already have very stringent laws. I know you, the right wing, I can't convince them. They won't believe it. No matter how many times we give them the facts, even the Heritage Foundation, the right wing think tank, could find like 100 cases over 30 years in a country of 350 million people. This idea that they're fraudulently voting is absurd. It's not remotely true. And remember, Republicans have investigated it in deeply red states over and over and over again, and they couldn't find it because it isn't there. It's something, so why would they even want to bring in ICE if it's not to catch the undocumented, the illegals, right? Because they're not going to send them to all the voting stations. They're only going to send them to Democratic areas to intimidate people and to delay things. If you notice, Steve Bannon actually made a joke there about like, to speed things up. And he smiled a little bit. Because the plan is to slow the voting down in the Democratic areas so that not as many Democrats can vote and not send ICE to a single Republican district. That's the actual plan. Now, at the same time, last thing, guys, I need you, if you're on the left, to not panic, okay? Because if you panic, you're gonna make it worse. Because if everybody rushes out there and they're like, ICE is coming, they're gonna arrest every Latino, they're gonna arrest every brown person who goes to vote. Well, if you do that, then people are going to be dissuaded from going to vote. And you don't want them dissuaded. So like the overall panic I see on the left, that's it, if you go to vote, ICE is gonna murder you. Don't say that, don't say that. Then you're helping the Republicans. It's a giant gift to them, right? So what are we going to do? We're all of us that are US citizens, we are all gonna go vote, and we're gonna be brave, and we're gonna be optimistic, and we're gonna be hopeful, and we're gonna get our country back. Let's energize, and I'm not telling you which way to vote, I'm just telling you. And by the way, even if you're not on the left, if you're on the right and you love this country, great, go vote. Go vote and don't let anyone intimidate you from voting. All right, Operation Joy is next. Back on the Young Turks, Cenk Uygur and Yasmin Ali Khan with you guys. So we've got amazing Operation Joy comments. Send in your comments about what's giving you joy. I keep asking you guys if you have any questions on how to get, I mean, it's a hilarious thing to say, but how to get happier. Okay, send it in. Don't care how hard it is, I'll give it a shot to answer it. So we'll do that in a minute and we'll read some of the comments, including one that I love because Operation Joy is spreading out in the real world. Wait till you see that one. But before that, I'm gonna do one comment left over from the show that gave me joy, and one story left over, that real quick one that also gave me joy. So first, Lucas R988 wrote in on Super Chat, switched to Noble Mobile in October, service great in New England, saved $120 plus, rejoining TYT and gifting subs. Viewers since 2011, keep up the great work all. Oh, I love to hear that, guys, because look, when we try so hard to create win-wins with advertisers. We don't do it every time. We try every time. We don't nail it every time, but we do try hard. And so the fact that it's saving you guys money, and you write in like that and telling me that you've got over $120 now more because you switched because we told you to, and then it works great. Oh, that makes me feel so good. So thank you for writing in, really appreciate it. If you guys want to do likewise, tyt.com/switch, tyt.com/switch. You guys are awesome. Okay, so let's do one more story for you guys. Let's go to the video.
Donald Trump and Republicans won in 2024 because of support from male voters. The only way they can win, given the gender gap in this country, is support from male voters. And male voters are abandoning Donald Trump. Take a look here. This gives the game away. Okay, Trump's standing with men. In November of 2024, he beat Kamala Harris among them by 13 points. Look at where he is now on his net approval rating. Down he goes. It's a 20-point shift away from Donald Trump. He is now 7 points underwater at this particular point among men.
Okay, fairest show in America. That's a tiny bit apples and oranges, because one is versus Kamala Harris, where he's gonna do better, and the other is just how's he doing, and that's his approval rating. So nevertheless, it is a big swing. And for Trump or any Republican president to be underwater with men is, well, it hasn't happened in a long time. And so -7 with men is a disaster, because that number is much, much larger for women. Well, minus a lot with women. So at first I thought they meant young men. No, they mean all men, which is actually stunning. They have a different number for young men. Let's watch.
Young men, of course, there was a massive shift to Donald Trump from 2020 to 2024 among young men. And look right here. Whoa, yikes, 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 yikes. Men under the age of 25 on Trump. He won him in 2024 by 5 points. Look where he is now. The net approval rating way down there. Down we go to -19 points. That's nearly, what is that? Nearly a 25-point switcheroo against the president of the United States when it comes to men under the age of 45. Those men that had switched their allegiances over to the Republican Party are seeing what the president is doing. They don't like what the president is doing, and they have very much soured on the president of the United States, men under the age of 45.
What is it?
All right, we're gonna get to why in a second, but wow. Trump is at -19 with men under 45? Na 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 na. Na 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 na. And I don't mean just for Trump, man. You can't have the Republican president with that kind of numbers and not get decimated in the next elections. Doesn't matter how many ICE guys you stuff into voting areas. It's not gonna overcome that. Young men are completely disillusioned with this administration. Before we give you the rest of why and more clips, I wanna bring Yaz here. So Yaz, how bad do you think this is for Trump and the Republicans?
I think this is very bad for them, and I think they probably know that this is very, very bad for them. This particular demographic is very much the reason why Trump pulled ahead in 2024. They could not have won the election without this particular demographic. That's why we saw Trump going on all of these podcasts leading up to the election. Kamala Harris didn't do that. Not that I think she would have had the same poll anyway, even if she did with this group. But he was able to successfully sell himself to the under 45 white men. I think it's just men, not white men, but men under 45. And he was able to do that through like this comedy network and things like that. But a lot of those comedians who once endorsed him, they have turned on him because maybe they're finally admitting that maybe they were a little less informed on the actual issues than they may have portrayed themselves as being, and they voted for Trump for all the wrong reasons, it turned out, and now they're very sorry about it. it.
Yeah, so obviously the war is a huge issue. America First is a huge issue. So why was I against Trump? Because I love corporate Democrats like Biden and Harris? No. No, because I knew he was a fraud. I knew that he was gonna do whatever Israel wanted him to do, and I knew that he was gonna start wars and trample on the Constitution. So I wish that wasn't the case, but it is. But that is not the largest issue. Let's go to the video one more time.
And look at this, okay, men on Trump and the cost of living. In October of 2024, look at this. Trump was trusted more than Kamala Harris by 10 points on this issue. Now we've got a 40-point switcheroo in the other direction. Look at this. His net approval rating on the cost of living among men is underwater by 30 percentage points. You see this, there is no way in God's green earth that the Republican Party can hold on to the House of Representatives if this number holds. When you're 30 points underwater with the gender that, of course, puts you over the top in the election on the cost of living, the #1 issue, that means see you later to that Republican House majority and maybe that Senate majority as well.
Yeah, well, he is driving me a little crazy, and they do this with all the polls, right? So one is Trump versus Kamala. If you do Trump versus Kamala on affordability, it's not gonna be -30. It's still gonna be really, really bad for Trump, right? But it's not gonna be that bad. But they also do it to the Democrats every once in a while. They're like, oh, 27% approval rating. And that is indicative. That it shows you the Democratic Party is not picking up momentum that they should be picking up with Trump in power. But you're not talking about the Republican numbers. Once you put him like in context, this tells a very different story, right? But nevertheless, guys, -30 on the economy with men is a disastrous number. It's an unrecoverable number. And do we have the credibility to be able to say that and have you believe it? Well, I told you that Biden was at disastrous numbers and it was totally unrecoverable, and that was also right. It isn't about which side you're on. It's about math. Numbers are not complicated. Republicans must win men. If they're losing men by 30 points on at least on approval ratings, right? That you're not gonna be able to catch Democrats. Just like I saw the Democrats whistling past the graveyard, backing Joe Biden, whose brain was falling out of his ear, right? And whose approval rating was in the 30s. Now we've got the Republicans with Donald Trump, his lowest ever in a recent poll is 36. He's where Biden was at 36. That's, again, nah. And you're underwater with men under 45 at 19, -19. These are unrecoverable numbers. You could tell yourself pretty little lies just like the Democrats did during the last election. But yes, this looks like I can't say landslide. I can't say it because the opposition is the Democrats. And there isn't any election they couldn't blow. But if they just sat still, they'd pick up like 20 seats in the House and regain the Senate.
Yeah, and it's hard to say because, well, you don't want to get too excited because the Democrats are remarkably unlikable. So even with everything that Trump has done and continues to do, very much at the detriment of the American people, the Democrats are really that unlikable that even when people decide, fine, I'm not gonna support Trump anymore, they're not excited to support the Democrats. It doesn't mean just because they're not thrilled with Trump anymore that they will automatically support the Democrats. But you know who they might support are the progressive Democrats specifically, right? If you narrow down the Democrats to the progressive ones, we actually have a shot at winning this. And because I think a big part of that is because a lot of people who like Trump because he was there saying all the things and seemingly being of the people, it was all a grift, but that's how he sold himself. The people who supported him are now looking at progressives saying, oh, they're the ones who are actually fighting for the people. They're the actual populists. They're the ones who are actually trying to help this country and get us out of this weird situation that we've been in for the last 10 years. And it feels very daunting. And again, I don't want to be too optimistic because I live in Texas and I'm constantly reminded of the fact that I live in Texas. But it's definitely something that is encouraging to hear, especially going forward, because if it's men under 45 especially, that is very encouraging for me. I'm under 45 as well. And I like knowing that going into the future, there is some kind of hope for the people that I'm gonna be spending the rest of my life with.
Yeah. So look, I don't want you to get it wrong. We say this about Republicans and we'll say it about Democrats too. When we say Republicans are like this or Democrats are like this, we mean the politicians, right? So the Democratic politicians and leadership are unfortunately intensely unlikable, right? So even if those unlikable guys standing still, I think pick up 20 seats. Now, if you had actual Democrats, people that are like the voters, that were economic populists, and you ran an aggressive campaign saying, we're gonna deliver for you guys, we're gonna try to get you benefits, get you higher wages, make sure you protect Social Security, Medicare, get you guys health care, paid family leave, all those things, then you'd pick up 50 seats. I mean, if we brought in people who were closer to the grassroots and ran as average Americans, then the Democrats would be in infinitely better shape. So none of this is complicated. You run as economic populists and you will rout them. But then when you get into office, you actually have to do it. And you have to stop lying to your own voters and to the country and then backing your donors every time you get into office. And that's what corporate Democrats have done. That's why they're considered unlikable. And that's why it's not open and shut case that the Democrats are gonna crush the Republicans in this election, which it should be, but it isn't, because the Democrats can't let go of the corruption. And guys, don't get it twisted. The Republicans, even more corrupt, right? 90% of the Democratic Party, 99% of the Republican Party, okay? So it's not a case to vote for the Republicans. It's just to say, for God's sake, go into your primaries and pick better Democrats and vote against the incumbents. The incumbents have a lot of experience in corruption, supporting foreign governments and corporations. So vote against them in the primaries. Make sure you get great candidates that'll lead to even bigger victories. And just go with the populist plank, and it's a guaranteed victory. Populistplank.com. Those 6 things all poll above 2/3 of Americans supporting it. Oh, should we go with our unpopular policies or our popular policies? I know for Democrats in Washington, that's a complicated question, right? But for the rest of us, it is not at all complicated. Populistplank.com, have real people run those campaigns, and you'll pick up all the seats you need in the Senate and the House. All right, so we got to get on Operation Joy, and we'll go a little longer today because we did a story, and that story is really good news. Okay, so first I'm going to read something off the website just to get us warmed up. Ian Gulbis says, how to get happier, smoke a joint. Fair, that's one way to do it. And I'm not gonna argue with you. Hey, you do whatever you gotta do. God bless. All right, so now let's go to tyt.com/joy, where there's a lot of great comments, including the one I promised you guys about spreading Operation Joy. So first we start with the Raging Atheist. He says, every couple of years, my husband and I, my husband and I take our 4 boys on an RV road trip to visit different national parks. In December of 2025, we took them to Zion National Park. Oh my God, I've been there. The Grand Canyon and Sedona. Zion stole a piece of my heart, and I knew I needed to go back as soon as I could. As a lifelong atheist/secular humanist, here. I feel so deeply connected to the earth when I'm out in nature. Me too. I feel like I'm just another facet of the universe acknowledging itself in human form. I like that way of looking at it. She continues, nature puts my existence into perspective, which I find deeply grounding. So I thought nothing could be better than turning 40 in Zion. So I booked myself a lodge in Zion National Park for a few days to hike alone and just reconnect with myself. I'm really looking forward to my trip in May, and every time I think about it, it brings me such joy. Here are a few pictures of our family trip there in December. So let's enjoy this. Okay, beautiful. I got thoughts on Zion coming up in a second. Awesome, gorgeous, love it, okay? So, the one place I haven't been is the Grand Canyon, which is kind of weird, but that's just how it turned out. But Raging Atheist, yeah, I loved Zion too, and Sedona, and all of our national parks, they're amazing. But I mainly want to give you credit for, hey, I love that you went with your family, and so did I. But I love that you're going alone too. It's okay to give yourself time and to reconnect, as you say, re-energize, and to just treat yourself. And so meditate there a little bit. Like a lot of times, so we feel pressure to not be alone, right? At least I sense that from time to time. But if that's what makes you happy, I would say please indulge in that. Yes, what do you think about that? Sometimes I feel like people put pressure on generally societally, like, what do you mean you're going alone? Why don't you go with your family? Why don't you go with your wife, with your husband, with your this, with your that? Am I making that up? Am I crazy, or is that real?
No, no, I think you're spot on with that assessment, actually. I think there's so much value to be found in just spending some time alone. And it's very hard to find time to be quiet in this modern world, because even if we're alone in our own houses, which unfortunately I think a lot of people are, we've always have things going on in our lives. There's always noise happening somewhere. And whenever you find a moment of quiet and you actually allow yourself to sit in it and lean into it and not be threatened by it or not feel uneasy about it, it's such a nice feeling. Like, there's nothing like it. And if you're able to go out in nature and do that, all the better. I mean, I've had moments in like California, actually, where I was hiking somewhere and there's just a spot and you just sit, and if you're lucky, no one else is around. And it's such a great moment. Like, I think about those moments even now that I'm back here in Texas, and I'm not that far away from 40. So that might be a good way for me to spend my 40th birthday. That's a great idea, actually. So I'm logging that in my bank.
Imagine you run into the raging atheist, and then you guys spend the whole time together.
That would be cool. Yeah, that would be really cool.
It would, except that it would defeat the point of alone time.
It would, yeah. The extrovert in me is like a little conflicted right now, but it's fine. I'll deal with it when the time comes.
A little ironic. All right, so BS 1954 just wrote in with a story I love, saying, my joy is both of my eyes are so much better after cataract surgery, but the biggest joy was when I was leaving the doctor's office. I had my TYT hat on, and a doctor walked by. He put his fist out with a fist bump, and he said, "Young Turks." I love it. I love that story. What are you guys trying to make me happy today? Those are great stories. Octo Squiddy says a political one on Twitch. He says, let me dole out some hopium. If Trump polls go low enough, MAGA politicians will start to turn on him if their jobs are also on the line. Maybe not today, tomorrow, or the next day, but the lower his approval with men, his key demographic, it's almost a certainty. The rats will eat the king rat if their lives are on the line. I think that is correct. That is not just hopium. Yes, at some point, the closer you get to the election day, and the more the polls continue in this direction, they're gonna have to panic and turn on him. It'll be too late by then. And how do I know that movie? A, I've covered politics for 30 years, and that's exactly how it goes. And B, I just saw that same movie with the Democrats, with Joe Biden. They were like, no, he's fine, young and dynamic. Oh my God, he's like the smartest, most wicked guy in the whole planet. You guys are all terrible and anti-Semites. I'm kidding, but could have thrown that in too, right? And then as the election got closer and closer, and they kept seeing those same polls, and finally starting to wake up to those polls, they're like, yeah, we meant not Joe Biden. We meant not young and dynamic. Well, please get somebody else in here. So some version of that is gonna happen with Trump before these elections. Not that they're gonna try to bring a new guy in, although some have already started talking about it. We told you about the op-ed in the American Conservative saying bring Vance in. I think some of that will pick up, but mainly, as Yaz said, it'll be Republicans distancing themselves from him in Congress. All right, let's go back to tyt.com/joy, where folks wrote in this week. Nomadic Bloom wrote in, the moment of joy, my moment of joy. I recently spent about $4K to install a solar system in Cuba for my mom. They get 20+ hours of daily blackouts where she lives, so this is absolutely critical to keep perishables fresh. She's taking care of my bedridden grandfather, so it's extra important. She's struggling with depression because of the situation too. The joyful part, in a recent visit, she casually said to me, I don't even notice when the power goes out anymore. That tiny moment made it all worth it. So, guys, it breaks my heart that the American government is so cruel so many times, right? We gotta do better in picking people, man. And we gotta get rid of the corruption, and we gotta pick people that have a very, very important trait called empathy. So what Trump is doing to Cuba now is they nearly have 24-hour blackouts. He cut off their oil from Venezuela. They can't get it from anywhere else. And now they're in dire, dire straits, and no one cares. So, right? And let alone what's happening in Lebanon. Okay, Operation Joy. But thank you, brother, for doing that wonderful thing for your mom and for seeing the silver lining in there and the good side of it. I tell you guys to see good side of even hard things. So that's a beautiful accomplishment that you did that in that case. So much love. Let me read one more before I bring Yaz back in. Lindsay says, hey, TYT fam, Lindsay here again. I've written in a couple of times about my struggles with being an emergency veterinary nurse. Just want to provide an update. About a month ago, I had to sit down with my management team, letting them know I need to take a step back from ER. My hospital has a general practice as well as a 24-hour ER. I will now be working more general practice and only a couple of ER shifts per month. While I know my skills aren't being put to best use giving vaccines and drawing blood for heartworm tests, I know I need this break, and I'm so happy that management recognized my burnout and rearranged the schedule for me to take a step back from physically and mentally 12-hour days that were taking my love for the profession away. I'm so joyful that after 8 years with the same employer, they were overwhelmingly supportive of my need to take a break from the ER and cared enough. There were tears shed among all of us during this meeting. I felt seen and heard. And she says, I really look forward to 8 hours a day, 8-hour days and less emotional situations, even if it's mundane. Thank you, TYT, for recognizing me and encouraging me to do what is right for me for the time being. Anna, I still religiously walk my dogs, even in the deep snow and cold Minnesota temperatures. Those walks have been my saving grace after a tough ER shift. Fresh air accompanied by movement is key for anyone. As always, love you guys, Lindsay. Lindsay, beautiful story. And with a beautiful conclusion. And also, thank you for having the courage to have that conversation with your employer. It's wonderful to see that there are other employers out there that actually care and that got you to the right place. And then the result is beautiful. So amazing job. We're all proud of you. Yes, thoughts on any of these that I read?
Yeah, I mean, that last story, I wish it wasn't such a rare thing for employers to actually care about the overall health of their employees, but I'm so glad that she was able to get the help that she needed at the time that she needed it. Because usually, you know how it goes. It's always about the bottom line. It's always about the business, to the point that we make ourselves sick and then go to work anyway. And then it's just like this vicious cycle. So much of the way that we live our lives in this modern American society is antithetical to the way our bodies work and the way our mental health is meant to thrive and be the most productive, but also the most happy, right? And we act as if happiness is something that is secondary in this life, and it's not. It absolutely isn't. Everything is better when we're happy. Everything is better when we're surrounded by beauty. They act as though, they can put up a bunch of cement walls because it's cheaper and we're supposed to be happy with it because you don't need anything else. That's not true. We need to have things that we love to look at, and one of the ways that we can get these things, hopefully, is by going out into nature. Depending on where you live, of course. Where I live, there's a lot of development, so they tend to cut down a lot of trees. But whenever you can get to a park or anything like that, it is always worth it. There's some water near me, and I love to go and just sit by the water and just have a sit and be in that moment. So very similar to walking your dogs in the Minnesota winters, I imagine. I've never done that, and I don't foresee that happening anytime soon. But whatever it takes to breathe in some fresh air and get some movement in your body, it makes such a big difference. And hopefully, between work and just living your life, you're able to find that moment. And also, to the person who bought their parents' solar panels in Cuba. First of all, so sorry that is what's happening down in Cuba. I mean, I know it's not, I don't need to apologize for the actions of my government because I don't support this, but it's unbelievable the things that are happening to people around the world. And these are just things that people are living with. And just as a fact of life, just as okay, well, now we have no power and maybe it'll come on before tomorrow, And so much of our lives are dependent on electricity now. It's not like we live in a time when the world was made to run without electricity anymore. It's not an option. And, sometimes it does feel as though they hold it kind of hostage from us because they know that we don't have a choice. We have to find it somewhere. So I'm so glad that the money that you did spend on those solar panels is being put to good use, but I'm sorry that you had to pay that money in the first place.
So speaking of beauty, Eclectic Miscellanea wrote in,
Looking at Yaz's beautiful home behind her and trying to spot new things I haven't seen before brings me joy. It's like playing the old computer game Myst, except I'm also listening to Cenk talk about World War III starting in the background.
Yeah, same. Yeah, that's what it's like for me too. It's just living. I do have my paint swatches on the wall over in this corner. So, soon something will be happening. I don't know when, because it seems like my weekends just keep getting busier and busier, but eventually those swatches will be put to use and maybe make it a little bit springier around here. I don't know. You never know.
Okay, we look forward to those surprises later. Okay, and people are now taking notes. Okay, in a good way. All right, so here's my favorite one from today. St. Pauli girl said, I've started Operation Joy at my workplace. We have a group chat and everyone posts one joyful item every day. Small win, positive thought, picture or personal experience throughout the day. It's turned into a positive way to end every workday by checking the OJ group chat. Started with just my team, but it's spread across the entire organization as we're a small startup with 100 employees across South and North America, UK, Asia, and the Caribbean. It's been amazing to see folks across the globe posting a pic of their pets, fave foods, local plants, and kind thoughts / recollections. It's brought our company together in a way that I've never seen in my 30+ year career. Thank you for letting me steal your idea, Cenk. Oh, I love it. I love it. Yes, spread it around, spread it down. Steal that idea, steal all my ideas. You crazy? Okay, so I love it. I can't get enough of it. So imagine if that happened in all the workplaces and we began to actually enjoy that portion of work and enjoy our colleagues at work and focus on positive things. Guys, we're drowning in like bad news and bad feelings and hating one another and depression and doom scrolling and all that stuff. No, you got to go up for air. We won't make it if you don't go up for air, okay? So it's important both politically and psychologically and personally, let alone philosophically, let alone spiritually, that you find time to bring yourself a little bit of joy. And then if it turns out bringing joy to others too, oh, it's a giant win-win, okay? All right, so you made my day by telling me that. That's amazing. Guys, you could do it at your work too. You could do it wherever you are. You could do it inside the house with your family. And as I keep encouraging you guys, I don't know if any of you are doing it, but sometimes stories like this come up. So it turns out that some of you are secretly doing these things. Remember, create a pocket of happiness every day. 1 minute, 5 minutes, however long you can hold it, where you only think positive thoughts. It doesn't make the negative things go away. None of this is magic, okay? You still gotta pay the rent. But while you're struggling to pay the rent, it's not illegal or immoral to still have 5 minutes of joy in your day. It's not, in fact, if you went all the way to an hour, nobody's gonna catch you, okay? You're not doing anything wrong. I feel like I always have to say that, Yaz, because, and maybe it's more me, but in your stories and others that I'm seeing, a lot of you feel the same weird pressure. Like if you're, I remember when I was really poor, struggling talk show host, the spiel I've told you guys about, the rotation on the Hot Pockets and the cereal and cold cuts and stuff. And I felt kind of guilty if I had a nice day or took a moment out for myself. Like, you should be out there trying to get a job. You're broke. You're staying on your friend's couch. So yeah, that's all true. But I already worked my ass off. And so, but I remember like part of the reason why I wanted alone time, Yaz, was that so no one would judge me if I allowed myself to be happy for 5 minutes or an hour. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I think we've all been there. And I think, we've all been a victim of like that, propaganda, if you want to call it that, where you always have to be hustling, you always have to be working, and you don't get to have happiness unless you've earned happiness for yourself. And it's such, it's, I don't know if I can say, it's terrible. It's not what life should be. And it's all just meant to make us feel as though we are cogs in a machine when the reality is that we are human beings. And you see that happen all the time in different political agendas where they try to dehumanize people. Now we have AI that we have to fight against, which is a literal machine. So what are we supposed to do? Make ourselves into even more of a machine? I don't think that's the accurate response. I think the response is to lean even more heavily into our humanity. What that means for your job, I don't know. I can't say. But as far as, our own general well-being, taking those moments of happiness, those moments of peace is not going to derail your career. It's not going to make people judge you very harshly. I don't know who you have in your life, but also who cares? Those moments are for you and you deserve them just because you're a human and for no other reason but that. And I think, the more that you get used to seeing beauty in places and the more that you get used to seeing joy and feeling joy, the more you attract that to you. You look for beauty, you see more beauty. You look for joy, you find more joy. That's just the way it goes, and vice versa. It works the other way around. And so that's why a lot of us are, scrolling on our phones and we're seeing all these terrible things happen. That's all we're gonna see, and so we really have to make an effort, especially in today's modern world, to just say, no, I'm opting out of that, at least for now, at least for these 5-10 minutes, I'm opting out of all of that. And I'm going to enjoy my coffee this morning, or I'm gonna enjoy my tea this afternoon, and it makes such a big difference for, your mental health, but also just like your general overall well-being. It helps regulate your nervous system. Everything just feels a little bit better and you deserve it.
You know what, even if people do judge you, that's why I call it an act of defiance and an act of rebellion to be happy. Oh, you're gonna judge me for being happy? Well, that's kind of your problem, not my problem, okay? So you should look into it. And so don't let them make you feel guilty about the best thing in the world. And if they're making you feel guilty about it, are they really your friend or family, right? Or look, I don't even want to judge them either. Look, they can, if they want to live in depression, that's their business, not your business, okay? So, but don't give in to any of that. Defy them and bring joy. Look, last thing on that is, so we talk about bringing positive change in the world. That's one of the main missions of TYT. And I think a lot of you guys who are members of the show and viewers of the show do like or love that, right? But why not also bring positive change into your own life? In fact, why don't you start with positive change in your own life? And then my guess is you'll be way better equipped to bring positive change into the world then, right? So start out nice and easy, keep a low bar, just do small things that bring you joy. And every once in a while, remember, hey, I could choose to view this positively or negatively. I don't want to be Pollyannish and ignore danger, right? But at the same time, I can choose to look at it from a positive light. And you'd be shocked at how many times you make the choice to look at it from a negative light when there's not just one, but potentially 20 different positive ways to look at it, right? Now, we'll save this for another day because we're running long here. But on another day, if you guys remind me, I will tell you the positive side of existential dread. Okay, I mean, if I can find the positive in that, I think I can find the positive in anything. And I have, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear that one.
That's a different day. All right, one last one here from tyt.com/joy. Playing pain-free volleyball at 70 years old. Wow, after knee replacement 2 years ago. Even if you're 50, push your doctor for a joint replacement if you need one. To the Victor wrote in, hey brother, man, I'll tell you, I got knee surgery on a torn meniscus and it's changed my life. So pretty angry that they misdiagnosed it, but that's okay. I'm looking at the positive. They fixed it and now my knees feel great. And I played basketball with my son this weekend. Did I kick his ass? Of course I did, right? But to be back out there and playing at 56 and doing well, it's awesome. I said that was the last one. Actually, I missaw it. Christina Salazar also wrote one in saying, being in my garden this weekend has really helped me feel better. When it seems like the world is on fire, these flowers help me feel calm. Well, Christina, put it up. Let's see him. Oh, we love it.
Beautiful.
You know what? I took a bunch of pictures. I took a bunch of pictures from my backyard. Maybe I'll share that on the next Operation Joy, because not us, but the person who lived in that house before was a horticultural genius. Like in the spring, the backyard is like an orchestra. It's not big, it's small, but she somehow packed all these amazing flowers who bloom in like a wave through the spring. It's amazing. So I'll try to share that with you guys. And yeah, as my last one's actually a super chat that just came in, and it is political and it has nothing to do with anything except for the fact that it did make me happy because, yeah, I'm not imagining it. I'm not imagining it, right? They do so much gaslighting in mainstream media. Anyway, Mikardov wrote in, I was so disappointed with Rachel Maddow going on correctly about Jared Kushner taking money from the Saudis, but not one word about Miriam Adelson and AIPAC buying politicians. So the reason that makes me happy is because you're noticing it, right? And you're validating what we've been seeing. So all these people on MSNBC have been saying, oh no, we're the good guys, we're the progressives, we're the left, we're the kind-hearted folks. They can't find a way to criticize Democratic leadership. They can't find a way to criticize Israel or AIPAC. They're not any different. And the minute that we suggest anything for you guys, universal health care, student debt relief, they all start screaming, how are you gonna pay for that? Even on MSNBC, how are you gonna pay for that? But on the war, oh, I found a way to criticize Saudi Arabia. Good, God bless, I'm happy about that, like you are, right? But you just couldn't find a way to notice AIPAC. Because if Rachel noticed AIPAC, she'd have to notice it's also funding the Democrats. Can't have that. All right.
Yeah.
Last thoughts, yes.
Yeah, last thoughts. My husband is a gardener. He's the gardener. I don't know what's going on out there, but it's so nice seeing, especially now, spring is happening. I'm looking out my window right now, but we have a fig tree, and it's been a few years, but it's finally starting to like show signs of fruiting. It fruited last year, but it wasn't very good. But this year, we're very optimistic. I'm very excited for the figs. So that's all I wanted to
Okay, you know what? Since we don't have old school tonight, I'll end on a fun last story related to that. So my dad, when I was growing up, one day decided that he was gonna garden, okay? And so in the backyard, he starts planting things. And I'm like, I've never seen it before, so I'm like, really, you're gonna put that seed in and then a tomato is gonna come out? Sure. And an eggplant, giant purple eggplant's gonna come out of the ground. All right, Dad, whatever, okay? So I see him planting it. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what happened. Yeah, of course, tomatoes and eggplants came out, whatever he planted. Did all of it work? No, but did a lot of it work? Yes. And I remember going in the backyard and being like amazed by it. Whoa, look at that. That just came out of the ground and now we can eat it. That's amazing, right?
No, I mean, even now it like blows my mind. Sorry, I don't know if your story was done.
No, so that's half of it. So that was already great. And then at some point, like a year in or 2 years in, my dad's like, nah, I'm not gonna do it anymore. I was like, why? That was amazing and it worked, right? And he's like, yeah, I realized that when I was growing up, I was a farmer and I did this and I kind of hated it. So I'm just gonna go buy it from the store.
What? Oh my God. No. We like every time we get something out of the garden, it's so miraculous. Like every time it's miraculous. We've got carrots growing, we have spinach, we have so much kale, we almost don't know what to do with it. We have rosemary, parsley, so much mint. Obviously, mint is just like gonna take over your whole garden if you let it. And so it's been such an adventure. My husband does all of it, but I'm a very enthusiastic participant, and I cook the stuff that he grows. But when I was younger, I used to help. Up in Connecticut, I would help water and pick the tomato plants. That was like what I did every day when I came home from school. And one last thing, which is just kind of heartwarming and funny. My friend just moved here from Egypt, and he's living here. He's married to my friend, and it's so funny because they're staying with her mom right now because she just had a baby and all this stuff. And he is out in the garden all day long, helping his now mother-in-law garden because he's from Egypt, and so he doesn't know about like gardening. I don't know. I guess there's like no gardening in Egypt. I don't know what goes on over there, but he's very excited to like walk in the grass and things like that. Although in Houston, I don't necessarily recommend walking in the grass because we have fire ants here. So, just got to be a little bit careful.
Yeah. So no, like me, probably he probably grew up in a big city in Egypt. Like there's plenty of gardening in Turkey. I mean, like my dad said, that's what he did when he was growing up. But in the city, you never get that, and that's why when I came here from Istanbul, I was like, whoa, look at all the grass. This place has a crazy amount of grass. I thought East Brunswick, New Jersey must be like the grass capital of America. I couldn't believe all of America was like that. So yeah, when you come from a big older city, America does look amazing.
Yeah, this is a beautiful country, and I wish we could preserve it. Actually, on that note, there's a lot going on in Big Bend, which is a national park here in Houston, and it straddles the US-Mexico border. The government is trying to put a wall through it. There's a petition for it, actually, and I can post it on my Instagram story after the show. But I just want to say that it is worth preserving nature, what we have of it, and don't let this government take it from us because that is ours. That's the note I want to end on.
No, that would be terrible if it was finished, and it would be Big Bend over. And we don't want the government to Big Bend over for us.
No, we don't.
Actually, we would like. Well, no, we don't want to do it.
Do we? Okay, is that what we want? Yeah. That is what we want.
Okay, last dad joke fail. All right, after 9 last points, we're finally done. Much love. We'll see you tomorrow.